Chapter 695. When the opponent's origin energy index soared to 40 billion points, the Tyrell armor appeared at the entrance of the black hole. Its entire body had turned into a rainbow color. It no longer looked like an angel, but rather a demon from hell. Even Ding Meng found it hard to keep his eyes open. The pressure coming from the front was just too shocking. Only now did he realize why he couldn't identify the origin energy element of his opponent. It was because his opponent was a master of all elements. Once he fully activated his origin energy, his opponent's aura was a mix of heat, ice, body hardening, electromagnetism, biochemistry, mutation, weakening, telekinesis. It was practically every element. Furthermore, the armor was a rainbow color, proving that his origin energy had been refined to the peak. Ding Meng had never imagined that such a terrifying expert would exist. At that moment, the armor received a message through its divine sense. His armor is made of 1,000 light, specifically designed to counter your rosy cloud. Ding Meng suddenly realized that the reason his opponent could increase his origin energy index to such a degree was because of the armor. He had also learned from Mason that the frogman's green light also existed on top of the frogman's 1,000 light. It had been dissected from the frogman's mother, and its greatest feature was that it could be converted into different elements. This explained why his opponent had a knockoff version of Divine Light. 1,000 Light also had a significant advantage, which was that it didn't require a hypercore to increase one's origin energy by 5 to 7 times. Rosy Cloud, on the other hand, could only increase one's origin energy index by 3 times. Of course, it didn't mean that one's origin energy index was powerful. If one's origin energy index was too large and couldn't control it, it would be a disaster for everyone. However, the Tyrell armor was clearly controllable. This time, he didn't act recklessly. After walking out of the black hole, he raised his sword and slashed at the ground. Clang! A rapid sound rang out. A ball of rainbow light the size of a ping-pong ball appeared on the bridge. Then, the ball of light shot towards Ding Meng. Its volume instantly increased to the size of a spaceship. It was as if an interstellar missile had been released. Ding Meng's entire body ignited with a bang with a 7-colored origin flame. He had reached the limit of 10 origin points, which was his true upper limit. His energy index had reached 45 billion points. At the same time, the Nine Heavens Galaxy art created a 7-colored shield in the shape of a Maoxing throne on his armor. He wasn't even prepared to take the attack head-on. The light sword in his hand suddenly transformed into a holy sword that was tens of meters long. The tip of the sword immediately pressed against the pupil of light, preventing it from approaching. Clang, clang, clang. Another 3 sounds rang out as the Tyrell armor slashed out 3 times in a row, and 3 rainbow-colored eyes appeared in the air. F***CK. Ding Meng could not help but curse. This was F***King over. He could already feel the pressure on the holy sword. If the other 3 missiles were to blast over, who knew what would happen? In a moment of desperation, Ding Meng clapped his hands again, and the wings of light in the air created a holy light veil. This holy light veil would turn into light when it passed through, and the enemy's attack would be greatly weakened when it passed through. Pa. After the 3 pupils of light passed through, they quickly wrapped around Ding Meng. However, they did not explode when they were wrapped together. Instead, they emitted a strange woo-woo-woo sound. Ding Meng immediately understood what the enemy was trying to do. This was extremely pure ice energy, and its purpose was to melt his heat shield. Suddenly, an alarm sounded from within the armor. Warning, warning, damage rate 5%. What was going on? Ding Meng discovered that the AI system was displaying a strange scene in his field of vision. An umbrella-shaped jellyfish was wriggling its milky white body. This was clearly soft mist, but now the jellyfish was wrapped up in a blanket that flickered with various colors. The Netherworld Devil Concubine's telepathic message was transmitted again. Hurry up and leave your armor. Its 1,000 lights are devouring your soft mist. Leaving the armor was a dead end, but if he allowed this thing to devour it, the armor would be destroyed sooner or later. The system's voice rang out. Warning, warning, damage rate 10%. Damn, wasn't this too fast? Ding Ming panicked. At this moment, he discovered that the Tyrell armor had leaped over the holy veil with its sword and was stabbing directly at him. Ding Ming did not have time to think. He concentrated all his energy on the shield, and the throne instantly expanded to the size of a starship. Boom! The entire abyss turned into a vast expanse of white light. This was like the fission of a nuclear weapon. You could not see anything except for white. Even the sound of this violent energy explosion could not be heard because it had exceeded the frequency range that the ears of Origin ability users could receive. After an unknown amount of time, the white light gradually dissipated and the whole world returned to silence. Ding Ming lay on the steel plate and opened his eyes with great difficulty. He discovered that the bridge was gone, the abyss was gone, the cliff was gone, and the tunnel was gone. The super explosion just now had blown everything up, including the prince's frog armor, which was worth hundreds of billions. The worst thing was that only 3 origin points were lit in his body. The rest were all extinguished. His opponent's sword hadn't been able to pierce his true body, but it caused an unprecedented collision of energy. During the collision, Ding Ming had used all of his origin energy to defend himself with a shield. Of course, his shield had also shattered. He seemed to have fallen to the ground. When he turned his head, he saw that the super crystal behind him had changed color. It was originally purplish-red, but now it was glowing white. A white layer seemed to have been activated on the surface of the crystal. He looked around again. Not only had the crystal changed, but the environment had also changed. The void above his head was gone, replaced by thick alloy steel plates. He was lying on the bottom of the crystal. This was a super metal hall. At least, he had never seen a hall of such a terrifying scale. What was this place? Ding Ming had a very bad feeling. He then spread out his telekinesis vision and saw that the devil concubine of the netherworld was also lying unconscious on the ground. However, there seemed to be a gentle blue mist floating on the back of the devil concubine of the netherworld. The blue mist actually had traces of green and healthy aura. It was obviously protecting her. Not far from the netherworld demon concubine, Ding Ming found a human woman sitting on the ground with her eyes closed. Obviously, this person was the soldier of the Tyrell armor. Her armor had also been turned to dust in the explosion. When his telekinesis vision touched the woman, she immediately sensed it and quickly opened her eyes. A wave of origin energy pressure rebounded, and Ding Ming's eyes immediately stung like needles. He cursed inwardly. The other party's injuries were far less serious than his. This time, he was completely done for. "You're not bad, Ding Ming." The woman suddenly opened her mouth. Her voice was very sweet, like a trickle in summer, giving people a pleasant feeling. If she had not taken the initiative to speak, Ding Ming would not have associated her with the image of a killing god in the terrifying armor just now. Following that, Ding Ming heard a series of light footsteps. The woman had clearly stood up and was slowly walking towards him. At this moment, Ding Ming felt that the other party had restrained her origin energy aura. He opened his eyes again and saw the person's true appearance. She was quite tall, about 1.8 meters. Her body was also quite broad, about the same as Eisendel's. She was wearing a colorful interstellar outfit. This outfit was a bit like a tight-fitting armor, outlining her curves very well. Although it was tightly wrapped, it was full of a unique temptation. Even without looking at her face, one could tell that this woman was extraordinary just by looking at her body. She was indeed a stunning beauty. Her facial features were exquisite, as if they had been carefully sculpted by an artist. Every inch of her skin was flawless. Her brow bones were prominent, her nose was high, and her face was sharp. Her face was a combination of the characteristics of the Huaxia and Goths, but it was also very well blended together. Her wavy blonde hair fell down, and her whole person was exquisite and sexy, generous and dignified. She walked slowly, like a goddess who had walked out of a dream. She had an irresistible, unique charm, especially her pair of light blue eyes, which were so clear that they seemed to be shining. Of course, this was a goddess in the eyes of others, but in Ding Ming's eyes, she was a killing god. Although she walked slowly, Her bearing exuded the aura of a superior. She gave people the feeling that she was calm, confident, and had everything under control. At the same time, although she was stunning, there was no expression on her face. Her eyes were terrifyingly calm. Dingming rarely saw such a deep gaze. He asked tentatively, Ling Xingqi? Ling Xingqi seemed to be silent. After a long time, she replied, very few men have seen my true appearance, but you are qualified. Dingming was also silent. His expression was a bit absent-minded. This place seems to have been tampered with more than once. Good eyesight. Ling Xingqi's eyes showed a hint of approval. I always admire men with good eyesight. If it were anyone else saying this, it probably wouldn't have any effect, but when it came from her, it had an irresistible attraction. Just like the transit string's attitude towards people. When you interacted with her, you would always feel that she was radiant. She seemed to care a lot about your words and actions. This would often cause men to fall into a narcissistic delusion. Unfortunately, Dingming was completely unmoved. Seeing him like this, Ling Xingqi's face finally showed a hint of a smile. Xingqi didn't misjudge you. You are indeed extraordinary. When she wasn't smiling, she was incomparably dignified. When she smiled, it was as if she was possessed by the transit string. She really was radiant, full of charm, and extremely approachable. They really were biological sisters. Some aspects of their temperaments were too similar. Dingming still didn't say anything. He had nothing to say now. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to admit that he had completely lost this time. Not every operation would be blessed by the goddess of luck. Too many experiences in the past had taught him that sometimes losing was equivalent to death. Ling Xingqi smiled. I know you're not willing to accept this. I only won because I had the advantage of technological equipment. If I really fought you one-on-one, the result would be hard to say. Dingming finally spoke. That's not necessarily true. Among the people I've seen, even the demons don't have the strength you do. Ling Xingqi seemed to be a bit emotional. 31 years old. You should know that you're only 31 years old. When I was your age, ignoring your strength for the time being, just your objective calmness alone was something I couldn't reach. Do you want to know what this place is? Dingming was a bit surprised. You're willing to tell me? Ling Xingqi looked at him meaningfully. That depends on your attitude. Chapter 696. Dingming's gaze seemed to have landed somewhere far away. My attitude has never changed. Ling Xingqi said, you were originally a member of the Star Rainbow Group. If your future development was smooth, it would not be difficult for you to become a core member of the group. Besides, you are so young and have a bright future ahead of you. You might even become Xingxian's ideal husband. Yet, you gave up your future and ran to Xinghao. Is it because of that Lan Bing? Or is this what you call an unchanged attitude? Dingming slowly got up and said seriously, you are wrong. It is neither. I only want one word, and that is justice. Ling Xingqi was a little surprised. The battle between us just now was not fair. Dingming shook his head and said it was fair. However, I was able to track you to this place because of your Tsujing base. Your Tsujing base on Pandora's V9 planet used poison power technology. How do you treat the descendants of those doctors? Ling Xingqi seemed to be thinking with her head down. You want justice in that aspect, but unfortunately, you do not have the corresponding strength. Dingming said in a deep voice, but my attitude has never changed. I will never let the people I saved go. No matter what kind of pain they suffered, I will never let it go. Whether it was you or your sister who did it, I will not remain indifferent. As for where exactly this place is, I will not let it go. It is not as important as my attitude. Ling Xingqi nodded. It seems that you're not a person who will change your mind easily. As she spoke, she waved her hand, and the light sword slowly took shape in her palm. Dingming saw clearly that this was not a real divine light weapon. Although it had a similar energy attached to it after shrinking, its real body was the same as his own catoptric deflection. It was probably a krypton weapon. Sure enough, Ling Xingqi explained, the creator of this sword is your old friend. Dingming was surprised. Mr. Cuddle? Ling Xingqi's mouth showed a strange smile. Do you know how it feels to be killed by a weapon made by a friend? I will only give you this one chance to make a choice. Although you are a star meow martial artist, I do not like to be entangled with someone who does not like to change his mind. How about it? Again, it depends on your attitude. Ding Meng sneered. If I wanted to die, I would have died countless times. You want me to be your lackey? You're dreaming. Ling Xingqi sighed helplessly. I don't understand. Men usually look very smart, but in crucial moments, they always make some unwise choices. Before he could finish the word choose, a faint white light flashed. She had already made her move. Ling Xingqi was indeed a decisive and ruthless character. If she wanted to kill, she would kill without any hesitation. Furthermore, with Ding Meng's current state, it was impossible for him to see her actions clearly. With a flash of cold light, Ding Meng fell backward. It was so fast that there was no time for him to react. This sword directly pierced through his heart, and a bloody hole appeared in his chest, gurgling with pure white and bright blood. Ling Xingqi's face was gloomy. She carefully observed the corpse. She suddenly realized that Ding Meng's expression before he died was different from many others. Those experts who died by her hand often had an expression of shock, fear, and doubt. It was as if they died unwillingly. However, Ding Meng was different. His expression was very calm from beginning to end. There was a kind of confidence in his calmness, and there seemed to be a trace of a smile at the corner of his mouth. It was as if he was telling everyone that he had really tried his best to get to where he was today. Although he had tried so hard to live on and not let down those who had sacrificed for him, life was like this. It always had an end, just like a sunny road, although there was no road ahead. But along the way, although the scenery along the way was not so beautiful, he still felt satisfied, because what he had done was worthy of everyone. He had a clear conscience. There are 3,000 paths, but I choose one alone. It wasn't easy for a person to die so peacefully. Whoosh! Ling Xingqi suddenly raised her hand. Another cold light flashed past. Ding Meng's head was cut off and rolled to the side. Ling Xingqi looked at the corpse with disgust. There had never been a man who refused a request. In the eyes of men, she was in existence like a goddess. However, this Ding Meng turned a blind eye to her. Even when he died, he did not look at her. This made her very angry. She was still in a daze. In the distance, the 9 netherworld demonic concubine let out a sharp cry and stood up shakily. Ling Xingqi smiled and said, "Lung Yin, you're really lucky. It's not easy for you to live until now." The 9 netherworld demonic concubine probably saw the situation around her. At this moment, when she saw Ling Xingqi holding a sword of light, her expression was extremely shocked. You actually injured me to this extent." Ling Xingqi snorted coldly. "Letting you live for a little longer is already the greatest mercy I can give you. Monsters that prey on the devouring realm should be killed by everyone. Over the years, you've hurt so many of my people and infected so many experts. Your life is far from enough." The 9 netherworld demonic concubine also felt the fear before death. She also retreated step by step. Suddenly, she saw Ding Meng's corpse on the ground. She could not help but cry out, "You killed him?" Ling Xingqi said coldly, "I will kill anyone who dares to disobey me." The 9 netherworld demonic concubine said in shock, "He's a member of the god race. Aren't you afraid of the god race's revenge for killing him?" Ling Xingqi said proudly, "The thing I'm least afraid of is revenge." In the past, many people had this thought, but now they all ended up like him. The 9 netherworld demonic concubine said, "Aren't you afraid of suffering the wrath of the heavens?" Ling Xingqi laughed disdainfully. "You really are a monster that preys on the devouring realm. You still believe in things like the wrath of the heavens. How ignorant. You should hurry up and run. Only if you run will I be able to enjoy the pleasure of being hunted." The 9 netherworld demonic concubine was speechless. Her vitality had already fallen to rock bottom, and her body was extremely weak. Even if Ling Xingqi did not use much origin energy, she still could not sense the depth of her opponent's strength. If she resisted now, she would die even faster. As for running, The end result was also death. Faced with Ling Xingqi's relentless pursuit, the nine netherworld demonic concubine could only retreat in fear. Suddenly, her back slammed into the supercrystal with a thump. In that instant, the white coating of the supercrystal seemed to have come to life. It was quickly activated, and with a wong sound, a ring of light expanded in all directions. Even Ling Xingqi was unable to identify what type of energy this strange fluctuation was. She and the nine netherworld demonic concubine both revealed expressions of shock. Wong, another ring of light, expanded. The nine netherworld demonic concubine's mouth suddenly opened wide, as if she had seen something extremely strange. Following her gaze, Ling Xingqi decisively turned around. She saw that when the ring of light passed through Ding Meng's corpse, the divine light bracers on Ding Meng's wrist were activated, turning into a white Qilin arm. Another ring of light swept past, and the divine light boots also turned into a pair of eyes of light. Another ring of light covered the corpse, and it seemed that it was about to change. Ling Xingqi's expression changed. She had never seen such a strange thing before. Rings of light continued to sweep past, and Ding Meng's corpse and head really did turn into light. Furthermore, they automatically assembled together, forming a humanoid figure of light. It slowly stood up from the ground, twisting its neck as if it was stretching its joints. This was a figure of light. Ling Xingqi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This figure of light seemed to be talking to itself. Didn't I die? No one answered him, but he seemed to be conversing with someone. So that's how it is. I understand now. What do you need me to do? Still, no one answered. However, a few seconds later, the figure of light decisively raised his head, and his gaze fell directly on Ling Xingqi. It's you. Ling Xingqi had already retreated 100 meters away, and she could also sense the terrifying aura emanating from this figure of light. She dared to say that even if she and Ding Meng, who were equipped with battle armor, combined with their origin energy index would not be as high as this figure of light's. Was this a ghost or Ding Meng? Was it a god or a demon? The transit string didn't have time to think. She decisively pressed a button on her waist, and in just a short second, a pillar of blue light descended from the sky, enveloping her within. Her figure gradually faded away. This was clearly some kind of advanced teleportation device, and it teleported her away in an instant. However, the figure of light didn't pursue her. Instead, it raised its divine light dagger, and with a whoosh, the dagger exploded with a magnificent light. Just like the battle armor's explosion, the entire world turned snowy white. At this moment, the netherworld devil concubine couldn't even open her eyes, let alone look. The terrifying aura's pressure instantly caused her to faint. It felt as if a century had passed before the netherworld devil concubine finally woke up with difficulty. She looked around in shock. The super hall had disappeared, and she was now in a world of light. This place seemed to be a boundless plaza. The stone slabs on the ground were made of light, and the pillars on both sides were also made of light. The pillars were so tall that she couldn't see the end of them. She didn't know that this was the Divine Light Plaza. When she looked around, she was given a fright. Ding Meng's corpse and head were still lying on the ground. But who was that figure of light from before? The netherworld devil concubine thought that she was an experienced and knowledgeable person, but she really couldn't explain such a bizarre thing. Suddenly, a majestic male voice rang out in the plaza. "Demon, since you helped him before, I'll spare your life for now." "Who is it?" The netherworld devil concubine looked around vigilantly. This voice was like her usual mystifying tricks. It seemed to be above her head, but it also seemed to be everywhere. However, the problem was that she couldn't even sense the other party's aura. The voice was emotionless. "Ding Meng's spiritual body hasn't spread out yet. Now, use your art of recovery to restore his spiritual body." The netherworld devil concubine asked nervously, "Who are you?" The voice completely ignored her feelings. "Do as I say. I'll give you 5 seconds. Otherwise, you'll die immediately." and your soul will be destroyed. Chapter 697. She was given 5 seconds to consider, but she didn't even have a choice. As soon as the voice finished speaking, the 9 netherworld devil concubine suddenly noticed a strange fluctuation in the air around her. Strands of light suddenly shot out from the light pillars and drilled into her brain from all directions. She immediately screamed like a madwoman and rolled on the ground in pain. It was so painful that she wanted to die. Senior, please spare my life." The 9 netherworld devil concubine finally gave in. This method was even more powerful than the queen of the devouring realm. Dozens of strands of light magically disappeared into thin air. The voice continued, "Do as I say." A pool of white liquid slowly flowed out from the light stone slab on the ground. It gradually wrapped around the corpse and the head, connecting it and reassembling it into the figure of light. The 9 netherworld devil concubine was helpless. She could only walk to the corpse and sit down. Wisps of light blue smoke came out from all over her body and gathered above the corpse to form a gentle blue mist. It constantly released bits and pieces of energy into the corpse. The so-called origin restoration technique was actually a secret treasure of the 9 netherworld devil concubine. It was a holy fruit that grew from the devouring realm's shadow strange tree. It only matured once every 50 years and had an extraordinary healing effect. As long as the soul of the person was not destroyed, even the dead could be saved. This kind of heaven and earth treasure was too rare. She couldn't withstand the explosion just now, so she used half of it. She was on the verge of death, and the remaining half was definitely going to be used in the future when she encountered a critical situation. But now this senior was too terrifying, so she had no choice but to obey him. After healing for a while, the voice said in a satisfied tone, "Very good, I'll spare your life. Remember, do good deeds and you will be rewarded. Rest." After saying that, the 9 netherworld devil concubine fainted again. It seemed that the senior didn't give her any room for negotiation. As she fainted, the divine light energy on the figure of light immediately faded, revealing Ding Meng's true body. Moreover, Ding Meng slowly opened his eyes and sat up. His body was as good as new. Ding Meng spread his hands. He was surprised to find that not only was he resurrected, but all the origins in his body had been restored, including the 5 diamond-shaped origins. At this moment, he raised his head and said, "Thank you for saving me, Senior." Another wave of ripples appeared in the air. A divine light, singularity, flew out from the gap. The singularity slowly rotated and transformed into a human figure. This person was roughly the same as a human, but his skin was very white without any hair. It was as bright as a pearl. This was the pearl race of Mao Xing, a true member of the Mao Xing race. Ding Meng had seen his clothes before. It was a uniform of the general he had seen in the Rainbow Palace. The general's eyes were also white and looked a little scary. However, when he looked at Ding Meng, his eyes immediately turned into a gentle blue. "You are indeed the one chosen by Her Highness." The general's voice became much gentler. Why didn't Her Highness come in person? Ding Meng couldn't help but transmit a strand of his consciousness to Little Rascal, from how he met Little Rascal, and how Little Rascal had transformed into a human, to Little Rascal. A moment later, the general nodded in realization. "I see." Ding Meng asked tentatively, "Is this the inside of the super crystal?" The general said, "Yes, this is the inside of the warehouse. The battle between you and the human girl was too intense. It triggered the warehouse's final defense mechanism and woke me up." Ding Meng asked carefully, "Senior, have you been sleeping all this time?" The general shook his head and said, "I was the general of Princess Ariel's imperial army. I died in the battle while protecting the princess. My spirit drifted into the universe with the energy warehouse. After a long time, my spirit gradually faded away. The me you see now is the last remnant of my spirit. This spirit has been attached to the divine light energy and has not dissipated. However, the warehouse sensed that danger was approaching from the outside world. At the same time, it also sensed the presence of Her Highness, so I was reactivated. Ding Meng was stunned. General, if this is your spirit's consciousness, then you are. The general nodded and said, yes, once the remnant of my spirit was reactivated, my life would enter the final countdown. Although I did not see Her Highness, I was very relieved to know that she and her guards were reborn. Ding Meng lowered his head and said nothing. The general seemed to know what he was thinking and comforted him. You don't have to blame yourself. A long time ago, the prophet had predicted my fate. He said that I would die completely because of Her Highness. Now it seems that it was true. If I had not been reactivated, that human girl would have killed you. If you had died completely, Her Highness would have been sad. You have been running around for Her Highness and almost died several times. It is a great honor for me to be able to save you. Ding Meng was anxious. General, is there no way to save you? The general shook his head and said, you don't have to worry about it. Death is not something to be afraid of. When you were killed by that human girl, didn't you feel that you had a clear conscience and had no regrets in your life? When he said this, Ding Meng felt a little better. General, what is this abyss? The general waved his hand. I don't have much time. Ding Meng, listen to me first. When I was escaping from planet Mao, a demon general pursued me relentlessly. Because I was carrying precious divine light energy and a map of the holy temple, I perished together with him in the infinite cosmic storm. Because the energy I carried was too large, I used most of it on the soldiers who had sacrificed themselves so that their spirits could be safely transported to the edge of the universe. However, the remaining energy was too large for your world, so it had to be scattered. Ding Meng asked, will the powerful fluctuations of the energy attract the attention of the outside world? The general said, that's right. That demon general is also an extremely powerful opponent, so it's impossible to avoid his pursuit. That's why I randomly scatter the energy to various major star systems. You've actually been to some of the energy points, such as Planet Madison's Singularity and the Rainbow Star God Temple. The singularities in those places are my remnant consciousness. Fortunately, you found them. Ding Meng nodded silently. Now, he gradually understood that these divine light singularities were not coincidental. Instead, this general had sacrificed his spirit body to scatter his will in every corner of the major galaxies. The general continued. That demon general had also disintegrated his spirit. His remnant consciousness had also been constantly searching for me. At the same time, he had also been training his representatives in various galaxies. Among them, the representative of this galaxy at this stage was that black handprint. My original consciousness had been guarding this energy point, patiently waiting for the arrival of Her Highness and her guards. This wait had lasted for hundreds of years, but unfortunately, she never appeared. Ding Meng seemed to have understood something. But your remnant consciousness couldn't wait that long. The general nodded. It wasn't until 30 years ago that the demon general's remnant consciousness finally discovered me. However, at that time, he and I were already in a semi-intangible state. We couldn't do anything to each other. Therefore, he cultivated the black handprint and came to the Thousand Fours planet, the core of the fertile chalk system. Ding Meng was surprised. So this isn't the poison dragon planet? The general continued. The method they used was to manually excavate and at the same time build fortifications to trap the energy crystal. This was because they couldn't crack the defense mechanism of the energy crystal. The purpose of this was to move the energy crystal to another place and then slowly find a way to do so. Ding Meng suddenly understood. So that's how it is. The general said, my original intention was that if they got close, I would activate the ultimate defense command and cause an energy explosion in the warehouse. Both sides would perish together. I couldn't let the singularity and the map of the holy temple fall into the enemy's hands. However, when they were halfway through, a human expert arrived and wiped out all the enemies in this place. Ding Meng hurriedly asked, who was this human expert? The general shook his head. I don't know either. This person's strength is extraordinary. He came quickly and left quickly. He wiped out the elites of the black handprint almost instantly. At the same time, he severely injured the Demon General's remnant consciousness. I believe that the Demon General is in the same situation as me, imprisoned in the magic point, waiting for his final death. Ding Meng was shocked when he heard this. As the saying went, there was always someone better than you. The true experts were never those on the so-called leaderboards. The general said. However, after the black handprint continued, an even more powerful enemy appeared in this place. It was the Starbao Corporation. Ding Meng said in a low voice, Ling Xingqi. The general said, the Starbao Corporation retained the fortifications built by the black handprint. Furthermore, they even remodeled this place into an even larger subspace in an area further outside. She knows how powerful Xinguang technology is, so she doesn't dare to act rashly. Ding Meng was deep in thought. That's not right. Once it's changed into a subspace, time will slow down. 2 years in here might only be 2 months in the outside world. The general said, that's not the biggest problem. The Starbao Corporation has been unsealing the energy crystal bit by bit. They've also been breaking through the energy crystal's defensive mechanisms one by one. The Penrose Channel, the fortification's divine light spots, and the Pearl Dreamscape's energy were all absorbed at the same time. Even though they've been absorbing energy for over 100 years, they still haven't been able to crack it. However, some time ago, the crystal sensed a faint aura of Her Highness the Princess. However, I discovered that it wasn't Her Highness herself. Ding Meng explained it was Miss Liang. She fused with the droplet. There was a period of time when the droplet fused with me and Little Rascal. The general said, since the crystal sensed her aura, it proves that the princess herself will be here soon. Ding Meng immediately understood why the workstations on planet Poison Dragon were able to capture the divine light spots. It was because the crystal had actively released them. The crystal's goal was to find traces of Little Rascal. However, this was also exactly what Ling Xingqi wanted. Her goal was to lure the Starbao Corporation's martial artists over. In just an instant, he had figured out the ins and outs of the matter. Why did the Starbao Corporation use the warped mirror technology on such a large scale? Their goal was to deliberately expose information about the so-called new energy source to the outside world. Other people probably wouldn't be that interested. Even if they were, they wouldn't dare to oppose the Starbao Corporation. Therefore, this move was to lure the snake out of its hole and let the Starbao Corporation's martial artists follow the clues to come here. For a moment, Ding Meng sighed. This Ling Xingqi was not only powerful, but she was also extraordinarily cunning. She had considered every detail. Chapter 698. The general said, although I have sensed the princess' presence, I cannot wait any longer. Every time my consciousness is activated, the time of my death accelerates. Just now, when you were fighting with that human woman, if she did not use the Frogman's technology, she would not have been able to defeat you, and she would not have woken me up. When the time comes, you and I can still welcome the princess together. Ding Meng said apologetically, I am sorry, General. It is my fault for not being as good as her. The general waved his hand and said, you can't be blamed for this. The human woman's technological equipment is much stronger than yours. Although you also have my divine light equipment, it's not complete. This is the fundamental reason for your defeat. But now that I've been activated for the last time, I want you to inherit the remaining energy and part of the temple's map. I hope you can give them to Her Highness and fulfill my last wish. Ding Meng said respectfully, General, I will do my best. The general nodded and slowly opened his hand. A giant divine light, singularity the size of a soccer ball, appeared in his hand. These energy sources cannot be activated directly. Once they are activated, the energy waves will immediately be discovered by the major galaxies, and they will definitely be coveted. Therefore, I can only use the human method to carry it. The singularity suddenly changed and turned into a small and exquisite metal suitcase. Ding Meng could tell at a glance that it was a crystal-carrying matrix, and it was a very high-end product. When he scanned it with his psychic vision, he could only see a crazy wave of energy waves bouncing back. He could not see what was inside at all. The general handed the suitcase over and looked at the unconscious Juyo emoji on the ground. This shifter is half human and half demon. She will be of great help to you in fusing with these energy sources. That is why I spared her life. In the future, you must use her well. If she has other intentions, kill her immediately. Ding Ming immediately took the suitcase with both hands and carefully put it into his satchel. I will remember your teachings, General. The general sighed in relief. Mao Xing has been destroyed for too long. Back then, everyone's wish was to rebuild their home. But now, it seems that rebuilding our country is far away. My biggest wish is that my people can live well, and I also hope that Her Highness can be happy and exist in this universe forever. This place is not safe anymore, so you have to think of a way to leave. The final time is up, and I will entrust my mark to you. When Her Highness sees you in the future, she will naturally see me. As soon as he finished speaking, the general's mirror image immediately shrunk and turned into an extremely thin ray of light that entered Ding Meng's face. Then, it disappeared without a trace. Ding Meng quickly felt a large amount of information enter his brain. Furthermore, a glowing imprint in the shape of a spear appeared on his left cheekbone. This spear was not an energy gun. Instead, it was a simple cold weapon. The tip of the spear was long and narrow, as if it was encased in a ring. However, it was more like the spear had pierced through a round pearl. Ding Meng sighed and said quietly, "General, thank you for saving my life at the cost of your life. You also taught me such a precious thing. I will not let you down. I will do my best." After he finished speaking, the light mark on his face flashed and disappeared. Ding Meng's skin also returned to normal. At this moment, his vision changed with a whoosh. Ding Meng had returned to the center of the super hall. However, the super crystal had completely disappeared. Ding Meng naturally knew that the super crystal's energy source had been stored in the crystal-carrying matrix. It was now in his satchel. He took a deep breath and injected a stream of origin energy into his satchel to awaken the unconscious demonic concubine of the netherworld. The demonic concubine of the netherworld had been knocked unconscious time and time again. She was completely confused about everything that had happened. She could not help but ask, "We're back? Where's that senior? Who is he?" Ding Meng sighed and said, "You'd better not ask. Think about how to get out of here first." As he said this, his telekinetic vision spread out in the form of telekinetic strings. At the same time, he constructed a telekinetic model of the green spirit tree. The demonic concubine of the netherworld could clearly see that the green spirit tree on the ground was a 3D map of Ding Meng's vision. It was just like the interstellar map on the control panel. Unfortunately, the map was too big and incomplete. The only thing that could be seen was that the super hall was at the center and that the surroundings were densely packed cabins and tunnels. Ding Meng's face immediately became expressionless. "We seem to be on a starship," the demonic concubine of the netherworld said in shock. "That can't be, right? When did the Federation create such a large starship?" Ding Meng said, "I also hope that it isn't. However, based on my past experience, I'm afraid that this is an unprecedented starship." His worries were not unfounded. These tunnels and cabins were too similar to the structure of a normal starship. It should be known that Ding Meng's telekinetic vision could see up to 20 kilometers away. This thing was more than 20 kilometers in length, width, and height, yet he still could not see its full appearance. This was equivalent to 3 times the size of a cruising mothership. If this thing was really in space, it would definitely be a colossus. Of course, there was also another possibility. The general had said that this place was a subspace. In that case, there was a chance that his telekinetic vision had been refracted or deceived. Ding Meng walked into the distance. "I remember that Ling Xingqi was teleported from this place. There was nothing special about the steel plate he was standing on. It did not even have any subtle markings. This was enough to prove that Ling Xingqi was most likely teleported from a fixed coordinate. He could only take the risk and give it a try. Ding Ming quickly activated his wrist guards and combat boots and used divine light gale steps to open a teleportation gate. After the two of them entered, the scene before them changed with a swoosh. What appeared before them was a standard starship main passageway. The blue alloy steel door, the light source as bright as day, and all kinds of scanning probes and emergency devices. The demonic concubine of the netherworld said in shock, "This really is a starship." Ding Ming was expressionless. But the problem is that there's no one here. His telekinesis vision wouldn't lie. It was empty all around him. Those functional cabins were really empty. The demonic concubine of the netherworld said, "Just wait. I'll know the situation of this starship very soon. Use that telekinetic model of yours to establish a mental link with me." The green spirit divine tree quickly appeared in the tunnel. The two of them established a mental link based on the model. Ding Ming realized that the demonic concubine of the netherworld cultivated a very unique psychic power. Even he had never seen it before. First of all, he could confirm that this psychic power had the characteristics of an illusionary psychic power. It could create illusions, but it was of a higher level than that. This was because the demonic concubine of the netherworld had spewed out large amounts of blue poisonous mist. This poisonous mist quickly melted into the steel plates on the walls and spread out in all directions at an extremely fast speed. This speed was definitely not as fast as telekinetic vision. However, it had an advantage over telekinetic vision. Wherever it passed, the green spirit divine tree would quickly create a three-dimensional map. Moreover, it was the kind that was very clear, as if it was a real scene. Telekinetic vision could not do this. This was because the further the distance, the more blurred the things that the telekinetic vision could see. This is the heavenly I am mortal technique that is unique to the devouring realm. The demonic concubine of the netherworld explained, "If my strength recovers, I can merge with the surrounding environment together with the poison. I can be everywhere and be one." Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "But if you run into an energy barrier, you won't be able to move forward, right?" The demonic concubine of the netherworld's eyes flashed. Her expression did not look too good. This slap in the face was too fast. Fortunately, her heavenly eye was not obstructed. She successfully simulated a panoramic view. However, this process still took a full 20 minutes. After that, the two of them could only stare in shock. This was because this was a super spaceship with a square shape. From the outside, it looked like a square box. However, just how big was this box? Ding Ming did a rough calculation. Its length, width, and height should be more than 50 kilometers. This was no longer a starship, but a space station. He was currently at the bottom of the giant spaceship. At the very center of the giant spaceship was a completely sealed off-hall. That was probably the command center. Let's go take a look." Ding Ming was too lazy to run this time. He directly transformed into a streak of light and flew into the depths of the tunnel. The deeper he flew into the tunnel, the more uneasy he felt. Not only was there no one on this giant spaceship, but there was also not even a single robot. Moreover, many places were covered in old marks, proving that it had been in use for a very long time. Although the doors to the command center were tightly shut, this was not a problem for Ding Ming. He revealed his true form and circulated his origin energy, raising the temperature of his origin flame to melt it. After entering, he found that this hall was no different from a normal starship's hall. The various areas were arranged in a very scientific manner. There were small control panels all around, and in the center was a very large control panel. Moreover, the control panel had already generated a screen and a map, displaying densely packed data and patterns. Everything was normal. The only abnormality was that there was not a single person in the command center. Ding Ming rushed up to the control panel and operated it. Then, his expression darkened. The demonic concubine of the netherworld, who had just arrived, was also studying the screen. After a long time, she said in surprise, "We're in the core space of the Fertile Chalk System's star vortex." The map on the screen was very clear. This giant spaceship was like a floating space station, slowly flying through the vast expanse of space, surrounded by an endless amount of interstellar dust. Ding Ming suddenly sighed. Amazing, truly amazing. The demonic concubine of the netherworld was confused. What's amazing? Ding Ming sighed. So, the curved mirror and the workstation were not there to deliberately expose clues. Those strongholds were there to transport the most important people and objects onto this starship. The starship is buried in the interstellar dust at the core of the star vortex, so the outside world can't discover it at all. The demonic concubine of the netherworld immediately understood. Planets Beidou, Perry, and Poison Dragon were all camouflage to confuse the outside world, making them mistakenly think that the Starbow Corporation was stirring up trouble on these remote planets. In reality, the real core was inside the star vortex. Not to mention that they couldn't discover it. Even if they did, what could they do? This was because only a starship of this size could enter. The rest of the starships were all outside, sighing at their inadequacies. Chapter 699. Looking at the glowing interstellar map, the demonic concubine of the netherworld said, "But I don't understand. I snuck in from Perry Star. How'd I end up here?" Ding Ming closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths. He muttered to himself, "I finally figured it out. What's going on?" The demonic concubine of the netherworld asked curiously, "Tell me about it." Ding Ming said, "The energy crystal is indeed on Thousand Fours planet. It should be buried somewhere deep underground to ensure that it won't be discovered easily. The terrain of the abyss is proof." The demonic concubine of the netherworld thought for a while and said, "Very likely." Ding Ming said, 26 years ago, the Black Handprint discovered Qianlin planet. They went underground to build fortifications, but they failed. After that, Ling Xingqi took over. She knew that with the Xinhong group's technological prowess, they would not be able to crack the energy crystal. She wanted to get her hands on Xinguang technology, but she did not want to disturb the energy crystal. The demonic concubine of the netherworld asked curiously, "What did she do?" Ding Ming said with a trembling voice, "She should have uprooted the large-scale fortifications built by the Black Handprint from the outside. In other words, she dug out the entire underground space and moved it to the surface." The demonic concubine of the netherworld was stunned. "So thankless?" Ding Ming shook his head. "But the surface isn't safe. Thousand Fours planet is always on the outer edge of the great stellar vortex. It's easy for the outer space forces, the exploration team of the Steel Main Empire, and the fleet of the Norse Empire to capture the signal. So before digging, she had to think of a way to get the best of both worlds." The demonic concubine of the netherworld said, "So she built this giant starship." Ding Ming nodded. "This giant starship should have the following characteristics. First, it should be large enough to drag the underground space up. Second, its size and technology should allow it to fly into the interstellar dust inside the great stellar vortex to avoid detection. Third, it should have a very strong resistance system that can withstand the impact of the stellar storm for a long time without being damaged." The demonic concubine of the netherworld sighed in admiration. "What a big deal." Ding Ming calmly said, "With the Starlight Corporation's financial and material resources, they can support it. However, there's still a problem. The giant warship stays in the turbulent flow of interstellar dust for a long time and needs to be continuously replenished with energy. Therefore, the Tsujing base has to be built. Furthermore, there's more than one base." The Nine Netherworld Devil Concubine also deeply agreed. Why did she have to keep charging instead of carrying a huge amount of crystal energy from the beginning? It was still the same sentence. Too much fluctuation was afraid of being exposed. Ding Ming said, "Only after completing all these can she be considered to have taken the first step. Then why build a workstation in a place like the Poison Dragon Star?" The Ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine asked. Ding Ming had to explain again. Because the energy crystal sensed the presence of the Protoss, the Singularity Guardians were sent out to search for them on many planets. Ling Xingqi must have discovered the pattern of the Singularity's appearance, so she built a workstation to receive the transmission of the divine light energy. The Ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine said, All right, she's done all these. However, we've already arrived at the command center, and she doesn't seem to have obtained anything, right? Ding Ming shook his head. With her meticulous thinking, how can she not have a backup plan? Previously, when the battle was so intense, she was still able to teleport away. This shows that she's considered a lot of unexpected situations. Perhaps it's also within her expectations that we'll be able to find our way here. As he spoke, he pointed at the light screen. Haven't you noticed? Other than the various complete internal systems, this giant warship has no external reconnaissance system, no weapon system, no defense system, no ion quantum system, and not even a radar. It looks like a starship, but in fact, its functions are inferior to a space station. Don't you find it strange? When he said this, the ninth netherworld devil concubine immediately went forward to fiddle with the light screen. Suddenly, she exclaimed, "The light screen is locked?" Ding Ming nodded with a serious expression. If my guess is correct, this giant warship only has one system that can be used externally, and that's the directional transmission mirror system. The ninth netherworld devil concubine carefully observed the various data. Yes, you're right. This shows that the last transmission was a single transmission, and the time was 82 minutes ago. It shows that Administrator 001 was teleported away. The coordinates are 009A, 006C, and 416. The specific location of these coordinates is Rainforest Planet in the outer region of the Fertile Chalk system. F***CK. This time, it was Ding Ming's turn to be shocked. According to the Rat King, the super warship was on Rainforest Planet, which was the Black Handprint's headquarters. Ling Xingqi had teleported him there. Did she think that the situation wasn't big enough? No, there's definitely something wrong here. Ding Ming felt that something was wrong. The ninth netherworld devil concubine exclaimed again. This warship's route is also locked. The system shows that it has been flying for 203 days, and its destination is also Rainforest Planet in the outer region of the Fertile Chalk system. Ding Ming was stunned. 82 minutes ago was easy to explain. Ling Xingqi probably sensed General Muse's presence and was frightened into leaving. But 203 days ago, that was exactly when Xinjia released the Black Handprint seal. Ding Ming came to his senses. After the Black Handprint was released, Ling Xingqi's plan had officially begun. She had already prepared for this half a year ago. The system shows that this warship will arrive at Rainforest Planet in 15 days. The ninth netherworld devil concubine turned her head and asked in shock. Ding Ming's face completely darkened. This isn't a warship. Huh? The ninth netherworld devil concubine was shocked, but she quickly came to her senses. This was indeed not a warship. Although it looked like one, it didn't have the normal system functions of a warship. Ding Ming nodded silently. Yes, it's not a warship. It's a warehouse, a giant warehouse floating in space. The ninth netherworld devil concubine understood why there was no one on the warship. It was because Ling Xingqi had led everyone away. The control system was locked, so the warship could only sail according to her will. Whether it was Ding Ming or the energy crystals, everything was still under her control. When the time came, the warship might not even reach Rainforest Planet yet. It might encounter a large fleet of the Starbao Corporation on the way. At that time, they would still be a sitting duck, unable to escape. Ding Ming sighed. He rarely gave in, but he really admired Ling Xingqi. This woman's plan was flawless. But the long-range transmission system can be used. The ninth netherworld devil concubine flicked a small screen. Ding Ming's eyes lit up. I forgot about this. If Ling Xingqi can teleport, then so can we. The ninth netherworld devil concubine said, the transmission system shows that there are 5 destinations that we can teleport to. Rainforest Planet, Poison Dragon Planet, Thousand Forest Planet, Perry Planet, and the White Ice Ring. Perry Planet is the furthest. Any further, and there won't be enough energy to support a long-range space jump. Ding Ming fell in a deep thought. Which planet should he teleport to? He definitely couldn't go to Rainforest Planet now. There was probably a large number of strong enemies waiting for him there. There was also no need to go to Thousand Forest Planet, because he had the energy. The risk of going to Perry Planet was also high. A large number of experts were gathered there. It seemed that he could only choose Poison Dragon Planet and the White Ice Ring. Return to Poison Dragon Planet. The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine suddenly said. Ding Ming frowned. Why? The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine said, although I went to Poison Dragon Planet as a parasite, I sent my race's divine beast to the Poison Dragon Planet before I left. The divine beast is hiding in the dark, and the Starbow Corporation definitely won't be able to find it. Once the divine beast knows that I've returned, it will be able to carry us away. Ding Ming asked, what kind of divine beast? The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine said, Void Spirit Ray. Ding Ming's eyes finally lit up. The general's words were indeed true. This ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine was indeed of great help to him. The legendary Void Spirit Ray, a divine beast that devoured realms, was also a flying weapon that could traverse the universe. Let's go, Ding Ming said decisively. He didn't want to waste even a second. The transmission system naturally couldn't use a human body as a unit. Ding Ming and the ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine searched for a while and found a small transport ship at the maintenance port. After setting up the transmission system, the two of them ran to the maintenance port and entered the transport ship. The connecting cabin door of the port was already open. Outside was pitch black space, but at this moment, a dazzling star path had already opened. The transport ship was swept in like a leaf, and then the light beam disappeared with a whoosh. Inside the transport ship, Ding Ming and the ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine didn't go to the command cabin. Instead, they stayed in the connecting passage. The transmission speed of the transmission was extremely fast. After 5 seconds, the transport ship rumbled and trembled. Obviously, it had already transmitted back to the fixed coordinates. They couldn't wait to open the connecting cabin door and jump down to take a look. This place was the grassland from Perry Star to Poison Dragon Star. The transport ship that was transmitted back then was still parked in the open space. Now, the two ships were side by side. The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine was overjoyed. It really is Poison Dragon Star. Let's go. I'll take you to a place. Ding Ming stood at the entrance of the escalator and didn't move. No need. The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine noticed his strange expression. What's wrong? Ding Ming was expressionless. We've been tricked again. The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine hadn't recovered yet. Her perception was greatly reduced, so she didn't notice the abnormality here. However, Ding Ming instantly recovered in the Divine Light warehouse. As soon as he came down, he saw a graceful figure slowly walking over from the engine of the transport ship. This person was none other than Isendale, who had disappeared in the fortification passage. The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine was shocked. Weren't you poisoned by me? How come you're alive again? Isendale said with a smile, Your poison is useless against me. I just lost a set of armor for nothing. The ninth Netherworld Devil Concubine was furious. You treacherous woman. You deserve to die. Isendale ignored her and looked at Ding Ming. It seems that you also realized that something was wrong and escaped in time. Ding Ming suddenly sighed. Stop acting. I just realized that you and Ling Xingqi are in cahoots. Isendale was stunned. Oh. Chapter 700. Ding Ming sighed. But you acted very well. You almost fooled me, but you still showed a flaw. Isendale said, Ding Ming, I don't understand what you're talking about. Ding Ming said, Do you remember what you did when we first stepped onto the steel bridge? Isendale frowned. She had taken out a set of tools, a pair of low-light glasses, and a shining steel needle. She used these two things to examine the material composition of the bridge. Ding Ming said, Your bat-shaped low-light glasses. Do you know why I said they were good? Isendale stared at him suspiciously. Why? Ding Ming said, Because I've seen those glasses before. Even though there's no logo on them, they're a product of the Starbow Group. I'm sure I didn't see wrong. I've seen them in the underground casino of Nanling City. They're exactly the same as yours. Isendale said, You think I'm with Ling Xingqi just because of this? Ding Ming said, A reasonable inference only needs a little bit of evidence. Even if you're not, you're still related to the Starbow group. Isendale was stunned for a long time before she sighed faintly. Okay, I admit that I'm with Ling Xingqi, but I'm not with her. Ding Ming frowned. Oh, is there a reason behind this? Isendale sighed. She's my bestie. This time, it was Ding Ming's turn to be stunned. He didn't expect these two women to have such a relationship. Isendale said, but my bestie is a miser. She spends a lot of money when it's necessary, but she's stingy when it's not. We made a bet. If I can sneak in her core base, she'll give me a sum of money. Ding Ming said, this sum of money is probably astronomical, isn't it? Isendale said, money is just a number to me. I'm not very interested. I just think this bet is very exciting. It's very interesting to find clues to sneak into Perry Planet without alerting the Starbow group. Ding Ming stared at her coldly. It is interesting. Isendale said, the bet also stated that if I help her get the new energy, she promised to give me a part of it. Ding Ming nodded. I believe you're telling the truth this time. Isendale said, that's why I said we're partners, but we're not with each other. Ding Ming stared at her coldly. That's a lie. You're lying. Do you really think I didn't find out? He cleared his throat and raised his voice. Everyone come out. What's the point of being so secretive? At this moment, a large group of people walked out of the connecting cabin of the transport ship behind Isendale. There were more than a dozen of them, and they were all old men and women. They all looked old and weak, but in fact the auras they exuded were extremely shocking. They all had the kind of profound foundation that was hidden deep within the mountain. According to past experience, none of these people were below the level of Battle Saint. Their strength could only be higher than that. The last person to walk out was Ling Xingqi, who had used the teleportation system to escape. It was obvious that the teleportation system on the giant ship had been tampered with. The teleportation message had been falsified to make Ding Ming and the Netherworld Demoness think that Ling Xingqi had teleported to Rainforest Planet. In fact, she had predicted that they would return to Poison Dragon Planet and had been waiting here for a long time. When Ling Xingqi came down, these people spontaneously made way for her. They all looked at Ding Ming with deep vigilance. Ling Xingqi was even more surprised than Ding Ming. I didn't expect Xinguang technology to be able to resurrect you. Everyone's hard work over the years has not been in vain. Today is finally the time to reap the harvest. In other words, she undoubtedly regarded Ding Ming as a dead person. She had to get the Xinguang energy. Xingqi, are you sure he got the energy? A skinny old woman asked. Ling Xingqi smiled. Third aunt, don't worry. When I was teleported here, I saw the surveillance footage. The energy crystal had mysteriously disappeared. Now, he has miraculously come back to life. Even if he didn't get the energy, he should know how to control it now. The third aunt nodded silently. She turned to Ding Ming and said in a very friendly tone, Young man, you are so young and talented. It doesn't seem right for us old folks to snatch you away. Good things should be shared with everyone. I have lived for a long time and have no other wishes. I just want to get the energy as soon as possible. My request isn't too much, is it? It's not too much. Ding Ming nodded. But what does this have to do with me? The third aunt's face darkened. Haven't you heard of my name, Ryan? Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. Not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry is worthy of my acquaintance. The third aunt was furious. Just as she was about to attack, she was pulled back by an old man wearing a long Mandarin jacket. Don't get angry with a young man. Everything needs to be considered at length. You're like a hothead. Why hasn't your temper changed after hundreds of years? Don't be an idiot. Although he said this, he was actually reminding her that this was the final critical moment. Anger would only blind her. Obtaining the energy was the most important thing. Ding Ming could tell that these old people were most likely the Ling clan's ants. They were all origin energy experts, and they had been gathered by Ling Xingqi for the divine light energy. The reason was simple. Everyone was waiting for a breakthrough. Once they broke through, the strength of the Starbow group's martial artists would reach an unprecedented level. This was definitely not a good thing for the Shanghao group. Ding Ming sighed. If you had all been so polite to me from the beginning, I might have been soft-hearted and might have even given you some of the energy. But now I'm sorry. You've been very rude to me. You didn't even let me off after I died. None of you here can even dream about getting the divine light energy. Ling Xingqi had no choice but to step forward. You've seen how many of us there are. I'm sure you know what's going on. Ding Ming laughed coldly. You've brought so many elders here. I don't think you're planning on ending things peacefully. Ling Xingqi said arrogantly. I've given you time and time again to make a wise choice. I'm still going to say the same thing. It all depends on your attitude. Ding Ming laughed coldly even more. Before, you had the advantage of the frog race's technology, and I underestimated you too much. But things are different now. I can tell you clearly that your final trump card has no chance against me. If you don't believe me, then come and try. Ling Xingqi's expression changed. Elders, please teach this brat a lesson. Teach him how to respect women. I promise that whoever takes him down first will be the first to use the divine light energy. As soon as she said this, the group of people became restless. A few of them fought to go up. The old man in the long Mandarin jacket from before said disdainfully, You people, can you be a little more shameless? How old is he? How old are you? It's fine if you're bullying the weak, but you want to fight with numbers? What a joke. As soon as he said this, many people's faces turned red. Those who wanted to go up first retreated. Ding Ming suddenly felt that the long Mandarin jacket was quite interesting. He couldn't help but laugh. Elder, you're quite fair. I'll say it here today. I promise that I won't kill you first. The man in the Mandarin jacket replied disdainfully, Young people don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. But it's normal to be a little arrogant. When I was a little kid, I was much more arrogant than you. Of course, after kneeling and begging for mercy a few times, your temper naturally changed. Ding Ming smiled but didn't say anything. However, at this moment, someone still jumped out. A skinny old man who was less than 6 meters tall slowly walked forward. Kid with the surname Ding, you look young. You probably haven't heard of me, Peng Long. We're all from the thermodynamics department, so I'll come and exercise with you. I'll also say this. If you can take advantage of me, I won't make things difficult for you today. You can go wherever you want. Ding Ming suddenly felt that these old origin energy freaks from the Federation were more or less reasonable. They were different from Ling Xingqi because these people had lived for hundreds of years. They had experienced a lot in their lives. What kind of strange things had they not seen before? The world was big. What could be more important than one's own life? If you had to choose between the divine light and your own life, most people would probably choose the latter. That was why everyone was still being polite. They probably didn't want to fight to the death. Ding Ming hooked his finger at him. Come, ha! Peng Long laughed dryly. Kid, you're even more arrogant than I am. He took a few steps forward. This movement technique was quite strange. It felt like he was a monkey changing directions on a tree branch. After taking 3 or 4 steps, he suddenly raised his hand and swung it through the air. A golden origin energy mirror image of a giant claw appeared and sealed off Ding Ming's escape routes. Although he said that he was just exercising, this was actually his famous technique, the Holy Golden Dragon Claw. It wasn't some kind of profound technique. Many origin energy cultivators knew how to use it, but he was the only one who could master it to this extent. This giant claw image wasn't as simple as just grabbing people. Just as it was about to grab Ding Ming's body, a golden Xiao Long suddenly shot out from the center of the claw. Xiao Long roared and attacked Ding Ming's face. Seeing this, many of the old men on Ling Xingqi's side nodded in agreement. This guy has improved a lot in the past 2 years. Yeah, that's how stubborn people are. They only practice this one move. So what if it's just one move? I'm not afraid of 1,000 moves. I'm only afraid of one move. That kid will definitely be seriously injured. Everyone was still discussing this, but Ding Ming didn't even move. He allowed the claw and the golden dragon to attack him. As soon as the claw touched his body, it disappeared without a trace. As for the golden dragon, it seemed like he had opened his mouth and swallowed it whole. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Peng Long was surprised. Huh, this kid is practicing a fusion technique? He hadn't guessed wrong. This was the diamond star fusing art. Currently, the star-fusing art had reached the point where he could absorb energy from any part of his body. Ding Ming's expression was thoughtful. Not bad. His origin energy level is around 8 billion. That's quite rare. Hearing this, Peng Long was almost angered to death. I'm a 350-plus-year-old advanced-level battle saint, but in your eyes, it's rare. Unexpectedly, Ding Ming raised his head and said, "All right, you can leave now." Peng Long was stunned. "Leave?" Ding Ming said seriously. "Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. I don't want to kill you." What a joke. Peng Long was furious. He couldn't turn back, even if he wanted to. A famous expert was forced to retreat by a 30-year-old kid. If he returned to his team, wouldn't he be laughed at by the others? Bang! Peng Long's hands suddenly ignited with 2 balls of golden origin flame. This time, he didn't wave his claw across the air. Instead, he directly pounced forward. His entire body was wrapped in a mirror image of the golden dragon claw, and he shot toward Ding Ming like a cannonball. In other words, the copyrights to movies, TV shows, animations, audio, games, and so on are in my hands. Friends who want to discuss, buy, or recommend the copyrights can contact me directly. In addition, if you're interested in buying a physical copy of this work, you can contact me personally to buy it. For more details, you can add me on WeChat, Prodile2006. If you want to join the book group, you can leave a message in the book review section. The Alliance Master will invite you to join the group. Chapter 701. Peng Long's claws slashed in the opposite direction of the cross, and the golden claws tore an X-shaped crack in the air. This time, Ding Ming could not stand still. He decisively raised his hand and blocked Peng Long's claws with a bang. The scene was very awkward. Peng Long flew out horizontally. Peng Long's claw did not hurt Peng Long. Instead, Peng Long's claw was firmly sucked in by Peng Long's hand. Peng Long's whole body was suspended in the air, unable to move forward or backward. All of a sudden, there was a loud explosion. The ground split open and a white light drilled out. Ding Ming directly pulled herself up from the ground and flew into the air. Of course, this was not true light, but an extremely sharp sword. If he did not dodge in time, this sword would pierce through Ding Ming's legs and pierce his internal organs from the bottom up. It had to be said that this sword was very sinister and cunning. The black shadow that rushed up from the ground had obviously taken advantage of the moment when Ding Ming and Peng Long were fighting to launch a sneak attack. Ding Ming rose into the air and kicked the person's wrist. He used the momentum to fly back dozens of meters. However, at this time, the air fluctuated and twisted. Another figure appeared behind him like a ghost and hit his back with a palm. With a ding, Ding Ming stood still after landing on the ground. His whole body was covered in a layer of black ice at a speed visible to the naked eye. This time, the person who had attacked was none other than the polite third ant. These source energy masters were all experienced. On the surface, they were polite, but in fact, they had countless tricks up their sleeves. The cooperation of these 3 people could be said to be flawless and flawless. Ding Ming, who was frozen in ice, stood on the ground, looking like an upside-down black coffin. The 9 Netherworld demonic concubine was secretly shocked. Although these people's punches and kicks were simple, the power of the source energy contained in them was not inferior to hers. Peng Long looked proud. "I thought this kid was good. He's just SOSO. In the distance, Eisendale looked solemn. "Boss Peng, you have to be careful." Peng Long and the other 2 were shocked. On the surface, Ding Ming seemed to be frozen, but his aura instantly increased by a large margin. The solid black ice slowly evaporated into white steam, revealing Ding Ming's true body. He was completely unharmed. "Hee hee," Ding Ming sneered. "I thought you would be reasonable, but it seems that I was overthinking." When he said this, he secretly sent a message to the devil concubine of 9 serenities. The devil concubine of 9 serenities also understood that she would only hinder Ding Ming if she stayed here. The most important thing was to sneak out and summon the Void Spirit Ray. Seeing the 9 Netherworld devil concubine sneaking away, Ling Xingqi's face darkened. We can't let Lung Ying get away. Kill her. Third ant was obviously a cultivator of both ice and light speed. She teleported to the bushes in the distance. At the same time, Ding Ming also disappeared. Ling Xingqi and Eisendale almost shouted at the same time, "Be careful!" Two figures flashed on the grass at the same time. In the next moment, Ding Ming, who was in midair, grabbed Third Ant's throat with one hand. The two of them landed at the same time. However, Third Ant could not chase after Ding Ming at all. She could only struggle desperately. "Stop!" Everyone shouted in fear. They did not expect Ding Ming to be so much stronger than they had expected. Peng Long scolded, "Little bastard, are you rebelling? How dare you attack a respected elder of the Ling family?" Ding Ming suddenly turned his head and glanced at Peng Long with a sharp gaze. Peng Long could not help but take a few steps back. He had never seen such a sharp and terrifying gaze before. It was only now that he felt the strong, murderous aura on Ding Ming's body. Ding Ming stared at him and said coldly, "Remember, she's dead because of you." As soon as he finished speaking, Ding Ming's entire arm turned into a divine light arm guard with a whoosh. Third Ant's entire body also turned into a white mirror image with a bang. Everyone was shocked. What kind of martial arts technique was this? How could it be so powerful? Ding Ming suddenly let go of his left hand, but at the same time, his right palm struck out from under his ribs. With a bang, a white flood of source energy exploded. Third Ant immediately turned into countless specks of light and scattered in the air. Everyone's first reaction was to blank out. Then there was silence. The entire field was dead silent. This included Ling Xingqi. Earlier, she and Ding Ming had both been equipped with battle armor, so they had mainly competed based on their source energy index. But now, Ding Ming's true body was using a martial arts technique that they had never seen before. It was so terrifying, violent, and savage. Ding Ming slowly withdrew his hand, and his left arm returned to normal. He looked at Peng Long expressionlessly. "You want to steal my energy source, and you say it's so righteously. You want to kill me, and that's normal. But if I want to attack you, that's going against the heavens. Is this your logic?" Peng Long had long been intimidated, unable to utter a single word. "Remember, this is what you get for messing with me." Ding Ming stared at him. "You're the one who killed this old woman. You should blame yourself for talking too much." Peng Long was so angry that his entire body trembled. "Nonsense. I'm going to kill you." At this moment, his anger overcame his rationality. He once again rushed forward, his entire body burning with origin energy. His entire body turned into a three-colored fireball that shot towards Ding Ming. "You're here to die." Ding Ming smirked as he raised his hand. Boom! This time, the divine light energy shot out from his palm was at least 5 times larger than before. This was no longer a torrent. It was like a fan-shaped railgun, violently vibrating outwards with a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound. Under such a terrifying palm energy, Peng Long's fireball aside, even the old man who had sneaked out from the ground earlier was drowned in it. Boom! 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 A few powerful explosions occurred consecutively, and the ground was completely blown up. A ball of white light kept flashing on the empty ground, and the entire ground was shaking. The people could not see the situation clearly, and the powerful shockwaves forced the group of battle saints to retreat. After more than 10 seconds of continuous explosions, the white light was suddenly retracted by Ding Ming. When the people took a closer look, they gasped. There was a huge crater with a diameter of 100 meters on the empty ground. Peng Long and Devil Blade's aura had disappeared, and they had probably turned into nothingness. Even the 2 transport ships had been blown away and turned into a pile of debris. Ding Ming looked at the people expressionlessly. "This is the energy that you want. Come and get it if you're not afraid of death." No one spoke, and no one dared to move. Many people had estimated that Ding Ming's energy was at least 20 billion points. Even if they were equipped with armor, it would not help. Moreover, they did not have any armor to use at the moment, and they reckoned that this was not Ding Ming's limit. In fact, they were right. After star General Mio recovered Ding Ming's state, Ding Ming did not underestimate his opponent this time. The 5 diamond-shaped origin points were activated together, and the effect was far beyond their imagination. Ling Xingqi, give me your life. Ding Ming activated his wrist guard and combat boots again. His attitude was clear. If you want to kill me, I'll kill you. I don't care if you're Miss Ling from the Starlight Group or the precious daughter of the Shanghao Group. Even if you're the daughter of the Federation President, I'll kill you without hesitation. This was not a matter of gratitude or hatred, but a matter of principle. Seeing Ding Ming floating over like a meteor, the man in the long mandarin coat said decisively, "Protect Miss Ling's safety." Sure enough, these people cooperated well. They all pushed their palms forward together, and a spectacular scene appeared. A hemispherical 7-colored energy shield was created. This shield had a diameter of more than 50 meters, and it enveloped everyone. The round shield looked a bit like the metal system's Holy Brilliance wall, but in fact, its surface was covered with dense and mysterious patterns and runes. Inside, there were various energy streams surging out from everyone's palms. It felt like a 7-colored chaos, and its aura was very shocking. Ding Ming did not care what tricks they were playing. He flew into the air and pressed his palms together. A pure, colorful origin flame blasted out first. The origin energy of the Holy Yang Tiger Palm was like a waterfall that flowed down 3,000 feet. This time, Ding Ming underestimated the super strong shield created by more than a dozen battle saints. When the waterfall rushed down, it was like water pouring on a giant rock. Not only did it break down with a rustling sound, but it also splashed in all directions. It splashed into the wilderness within a few hundred meters, and at least 60 to 70 grasslands were blasted into scorched earth. It was not inferior to the bombardment of a fleet on Poison Dragon Planet. Although the shield did not budge, the hearts of these old monsters were in a perilous situation. Everyone was thankful that the man in the long jacket had sharp eyes and activated the shield at the first moment to defend. If this brat had really gotten close to them, no one present would have been able to withstand him. Ling Xingqi looked pleased. The Ling family had not raised these loyal officials for nothing. They had been able to withstand these life and death trials at critical moments. Suddenly, everyone felt their breathing stagnate. The powerful aura coming from a front was coming again. When they looked up again, Ding Ming, who was right in front of them, suddenly stretched out his limbs. His entire body was burning with a bright white origin flame. The divine light essence in the form of a man of light had been activated. This was the method to use the diamond origin that the general had passed down to him. These 5 diamond origins not only multiplied a martial artist's strength, but they could also transform a martial artist's body, fusing the divine light essence that had been tempered many times with a martial artist. Divine light technology focused on switching between different forms: light form, solid form, liquid form, gaseous form. These were the original forms of all things in the universe. Although the primal chaos shield was powerful, it was not an absolute core. It would always have weaknesses and flaws. After all, it was the result of the fusion of many experts. Ding Ming's body was bent, and his 4 limbs were tightened. His 2 fists were crossed in front of his chest. It looked like he was accumulating power. The man in the long jacket was incomparably nervous. He shouted, "Old monsters, watch closely. This brat is accumulating power." His strength could be considered quite solid, and he could still see Ding Ming's movements. The others could not see it at all. It was not that they could not see it, but that they did not dare to raise their heads to look closely. In their minds, sensing an origin ability user's aura was usually based on fluctuations. However, right now, the other party's aura was like a fierce demonic wind that swept over them. Most people could hear that demonic whooshing sound. It should be known that they were still separated by the primal chaos shield, so they did not know just how heaven-defying the true origin ability user's aura was. In other words, the copyrights to movies, TV shows, animations, audio, games, and so on are all in my hands. Friends who want to discuss, buy, or recommend the copyrights can contact me directly. In addition, if you're interested in buying a physical copy of this work, you can contact me personally to buy it. For more details, you can add me on WeChat, Prodial2006. If you want to join the book group, you can leave a message in the book review section. The guild master will add you to the group. Chapter 702. After another round of pressure, Ding Ming suddenly stretched out his limbs. His entire body shook violently, and with a whoosh, a ring of terrifying energy burst out. The figure of light was like a mirror image that instantly expanded hundreds of times, expanding in all directions. It was like a giant had been born, like a god had descended to earth. This was the purest form of Mao Xing's Overlord's mountain-crushing force. It was no longer as weak as when Ding Meng had cultivated it in the Norse Empire. It was like an even bigger and more exaggerated shield that directly collided with the super shield. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, it wasn't just the ground that was shaking. To Ling Xingqi and the others, it was as if the entire world was shaking. Many of them could already smell the scent of death. In the moment of death, people could always remember many things in the past. It could even be said that in everyone's inner world, this moment was unprecedentedly quiet. Everyone's consciousness was a bit dazed. Everyone was still resisting, but it was their instinct to do so. Ka-ka-ka. Ka-ka-ka. The Overlord's mountain-crushing force shook most of the patterns and runes on the surface of the shield to pieces. This was the most important defense mechanism of the shield. Once these secret techniques were shaken off, the shield's origin energy would be useless no matter how strong it was. The man in the Mandarin jacket noticed that the ground beneath his feet was already falling apart. Countless bits of grass and pebbles were constantly being stirred up into the air. He felt that Ding Meng was pulling them into the depths of hell. The man in the Mandarin jacket circulated his origin energy to the limit, took a deep breath, and calmed his mind. Then he shouted loudly, "This life of mine was personally saved by the boss. I've lived for hundreds of years, and it's already been enough. Old bastards, I don't know what you're thinking, and I don't want to know. I, Wu Songjin, will be leaving first today. Old brothers, is there anyone who wants to go with me?" This was a true moment of life and death. Many people knew that they couldn't let go at this moment. If they did, they would all be reduced to ashes. Thus, many people immediately spoke up. "Old Wu, let me help you. My life was also saved by the boss. Everyone, let's fight this kid to the death. Motherf asterisk her, are we going to be played to death by this youngster? I can't take this lying down. Protect the big miss." Clang! An urgent sound was heard. The super shield instantly shrank to less than 15 meters in diameter, but the brilliance was even brighter and the energy was even purer. Ding Meng could feel that the shield's energy had clearly increased, and it was also an explosive increase. These old origin energy monsters really were something. Brothers, listen to my command. Use third brother's ultimate skill to counterattack. 3, 2, 1, go. Wu Songjin roared. Suddenly, a powerful electric current tens of meters thick burst out from the front of the super shield. The bright lightning was also colorful, and it forcibly pushed away the mirror image of the figure of light bit by bit. Wu Songjin's eyes lit up. Kill! Crack! The thick lightning instantly divided into several dozen streams. Standing on the grassland of the Poison Dragon Star, it didn't look like lightning itself, but like several dozen torrents descending from the sky. Chi-chi, chi-chi, chi. The mirror image of the figure of light was pushed back by this group of people, and the trembling effect of the Overlord's mountain crumbling force slowly disappeared. However, the electromagnetic effect didn't disappear. The rainbow star transformation retracted all the branches of electricity and formed a tornado that swallowed Ding Meng. The speed of the tornado was very slow, but its power was terrifying. It connected the grassland to the sky, and it was like a thundercloud. Even the dark clouds in the sky seemed to have been sucked in. The sky and earth seemed to be roaring and howling, vowing to crush Ding Meng into powder. This was supposed to be an exquisite and invincible attack, but halfway through the rainbow star transformation, Wu Cangzhen's expression completely changed. His old face that was like tree bark was even twisting in despair. It was because Ding Meng's aura was still rising, and it was rising at an even fiercer and faster pace. To put it bluntly, this was a height that Wu Cangzhen and the others had to look up to or even think about. They had never thought that there would be a human who could cultivate to such an earth-shattering level. This was the limit of 5 diamond origin points. Its energy fluctuation distorted the surrounding air. Everyone's vision was a striped world. Everything was so unreal. Was this the strength of a martial artist of Maoxing? Wu Cangzhen's heart was trembling. He quietly sent a telepathic message behind him. "Miss Run Run." Ling Xingqi finally showed a shocked expression. "Elder Wu." There was an unprecedented fear in Wu Cangzhen's telepathic thoughts. "Miss, now is not the time for you to show off. This man's strength is far beyond our expectations. You go first and go to the number 5 stronghold. There are starships there. You should leave as soon as possible." Ling Xingqi said in shock. "Elder Wu, could it be that even with so many people, we can't do anything to him?" Wu Cangzhen sighed. "Miss, if you don't leave now, I'm afraid that you will also die here. We can die, but you can't. When you go back, please tell the boss that we thank him for taking care of us all these years. Please gather more people and avenge us in the future." In other words, he was already prepared to die. There was no victory or defeat in a battle of this level, only life and death. Ling Xingqi's eyes suddenly turned red. The people in front of her were people who had watched her grow up, and they were also good friends who had taught her cultivation step by step. They were like family to her. But in this situation, she couldn't believe that Ding Meng could kill so many of her teachers by himself. Seeing that she was still hesitating, Wu Cangzhen couldn't help but roar, "Go!" Ling Xingqi could only secretly circulate her origin energy and silently retreat. The super shield had already opened up a gap for her from behind. By the time Ding Meng's counterattack appeared, they wouldn't even have the chance to open up this gap. Ding Meng couldn't help but be furious when he saw Ling Xingqi running away with his telekinesis. "You want to run? Then these people will be buried with you." Ding Meng waved his hand, and a curtain of holy light immediately appeared between heaven and earth. It was like a leaping curtain of water that blocked the 7-colored stellar transformation. Then, he pushed out with his palm, and the divine light thorn instantly transformed into a 100-meter-long divine light holy sword. The holy sword pierced through the curtain of holy light and slashed at the lightning. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. The 2 powerful weapons collided, and countless thick electric currents crackled. Not only was the lightning repelled, but it also gradually shrank in size. It was obviously no match for the holy sword. After resisting for about 30 seconds, the 7-colored stellar transformation completely disappeared without a trace. The divine light holy sword melted into the super shield like a beam of light. At this moment, everyone inside the shield was undergoing a terrifying change. Their bodies were rapidly withering, fading, and dying as if they had been corroded by sulfuric acid. Their skin and flesh were instantly dissolved, leaving behind only their skeletons. Another round of divine light struck, and the skeletons also turned into streams of light. The shield had become a light pupil, completely assimilated by the divine light. Looking down from the sky, the ground was already scorched like hell. In the middle of the scorched earth, a pupil of light was spinning and shrinking rapidly, extending 1,000 meters of light to both sides. The light shrank again, and with a loud bang, the pupil of light finally exploded. This kind of explosion didn't look like an energy fission. Instead, it turned into an even larger curtain of holy light that was embedded deep underground. After a long time, the whole world returned to silence. There were no people, no grass, no debris, and no light. There was only grayish-brown, scorched earth. In the middle of the scorched earth, a 1,000-meter-long, 20-meter-wide crack was visible. It was so dark that the bottom couldn't be seen, and thick smoke constantly floated up. More than 10 elites of the Starbow Corporation were buried under Planet Poison Dragon, just like that. Not even their spirit bodies were left behind. Ding Meng also returned to normal and revealed his true body. He sighed slightly. He couldn't sense Ling Xingqi's presence anymore. It seemed that Ling Xingqi was very cunning. She knew to hide her presence after running far away. However, at this moment, a gentle breeze swept past him from behind. Ding Meng's mind was somewhat absent-minded because he smelled a faint fragrance. It was this fragrance that caused him to become absent-minded for a moment. Poison. Ding Meng reacted. When he looked up again, Isendale had already floated to a spot about 30 meters away from him. She was carrying his bag. Isendale looked at him with a smile. Not bad. You're also a mutant poison spirit source. You're immune to most poisons. You can react in such a short time. Ding Meng's expression didn't change. When Ling Xingqi escaped through the crack, you followed her. I didn't expect you to not only not escape, but also sneak into the depths of the ground. Isendale smiled. When you go all out, no one is your match. You're at your weakest right now, and it's also my chance. The only chance I have is a fleeting one. Ding Meng said lightly. It seems that you're good at seizing opportunities. Isendale smiled even more happily. Thank you for letting me win. I'm much more interested in stealing and robbing than in new energy sources. Stealing from a strong master like you gives me a great sense of accomplishment. Ding Meng said, Since you stole it, can you get back to me? Isendale smiled. That won't do. You know that I have a lot of good stuff in my bag, so I have a habit of checking other people's bags. Very good. Ding Meng glanced at her and said lightly, Actually, I have a secret that I haven't told you yet. Oh. Isendale was interested. What secret? Ding Meng said, My secret is that I wasn't at my full power just now. If I was, you would have been dead when you were underground. I didn't kill you because you didn't want to kill me. Isendale smiled again. Don't brag. You're at your limit now. I'm going to take this bag. Ding Meng sneered. Is that so? Before she could finish her sentence, Isendale's vision suddenly blurred. Ding Meng suddenly disappeared. She retreated quickly in shock and opened her ice primeval chaos umbrella shield. As soon as the shield was up, it turned into pink smoke with a bang. While she was retreating, she found that Ding Meng's face was less than half a meter away from hers. She even smelled the turbid and threatening masculine scent on Ding Meng's body. 2 seconds later, she had a completely new feeling. It was as if a huge hammer had forcefully drilled into her forehead, and this hammer had almost shattered her entire body. Isendale's eyes widened. She was shocked to find that Ding Meng's signature hand knife had hit her forehead. Chapter 703. Puff. Isendale raised her head and spat out a mouthful of pink blood. Then she knelt on the ground with a thud. Her whole body was limp, and she could not exert any strength. This time, Ding Meng did not use his Kirin arm, which meant that even if Ding Meng was tired now, he could easily deal with her at her peak. Isendale was really dizzy from this blow. She knelt on the ground and could not get up no matter how hard she tried. Ding Meng easily took the satchel from her hand and put it back on his waist. After a long time, Isendale recovered a little. She was extremely shocked. When you first came here, you were not as strong as you are now. Did the so-called holy light energy improve you in such a short time? Ding Meng looked at her expressionlessly. Where is Miss Liang? Isendale laughed again. That weird female monster. Is she your old flame? This time, Ding Meng was not polite with her. He grabbed her wavy hair and forced her head up. Miss Liang disappeared with you in the fortification. Where is she? I will only ask this once. Isendale's expression was very stubborn. She was still laughing. So you also have a time when you need help? Ding Meng stared at her. You dare to side with Ling Xingqi without fear. You must have subdued Miss Liang. Otherwise, you would not have the guts to delay me and buy time for Ling Xingqi to escape. Isendale sneered. We are best friends. Ding Meng did not bother to talk nonsense. He grabbed her hair and kneed her. With a crack, Isendale was sent flying, her front teeth all broken. Woo-woo. Isendale fell to the ground, her face full of anger. She could not speak clearly. You, you hit a woman. She had something in common with Ling Xingqi. She was conceited about her beauty, and men would usually take pity on her. However, Ding Ming was a straight man who never fell for this trick. He would never be soft-hearted when it came to ruthless actions. Isendale was still lying on the ground. Ding Ming grabbed her long hair again and bent down to stare at her. This is the last time. Where's Miss Liang? You don't have to tell me, but I will make you wish you were dead. Isendale's saliva, mixed with blood and broken teeth, sprayed on Ding Ming's face. Stinky man, you'll never know. Ding Ming took a deep breath and prepared to punch the woman in the heart. However, he realized that the woman's breasts were too big. Perhaps they had a cushioning effect, so he kicked her right leg to the side and spread her legs apart. Then, he kicked Isendale's vital part. He was very familiar with the physiological structure of a human body and knew that men and women were the same in this aspect. The pain of being kicked in such a vital part was indescribable and would last for a long time. Sure enough, Isendale screamed miserably and rolled around on the ground. She curled up into a ball and seemed to have convulsed. She had always thought that Ding Ming was easy to talk to, but she did not expect that Ding Ming could be so ruthless when he was not easy to talk to. At this moment, the pain in her lower body was so great that she almost fainted. What she was most worried about had happened. There was liquid sliding down her thighs. It had to be blood. You are so cruel. Isendale's tears flowed out. My down there seems to be broken. No man has ever dared to touch me. She could not catch her breath. Her eyes rolled back, and she almost fainted again. Ding Ming stared at her like a wolf. If anything happens to Miss Liang, you will pay back 10 times the price. He cared about Liang Yi's safety because of the battle on Planet Extreme Flame. If Liang Yi had not sacrificed himself to save everyone, he would have been killed by towering Sky Peak. Now that he saw Isendale's stubbornness, his methods would only be crueler. Ding Ming walked forward and waved his right hand. The catoptric deflection on his belt automatically came out, and a bright blue blade flew into his palm. Ding Ming then squatted beside Isendale and carefully observed her body. His gaze was like that of a doctor observing a patient with a scalpel. Which part should he start? What do you want to do? Isendale finally felt fear. In fact, she knew that she would not end well if she fell into the enemy's hands. Especially some perverted men. Once certain things happened, they would ravage her to death. She only hoped that Ding Ming would give her a quick death. Unexpectedly, Ding Ming cut open the top of her black galactic fashion, exposing the purple interior. Ding Ming sneered. Don't worry, I am not interested in you. I will strip you naked and tie you up. Then, I will throw you out on the streets of the Federation. I want everyone to see what kind of person is on the so-called warrior beauty list. You will soon cause a sensation in the Holy Grail Federation and become a celebrity. How dare you? Isendale was scared out of her wits. This was even scarier than killing her with a single blow. The key was that she knew that Ding Ming was the kind of person who would do what he said. Now, Ding Ming had cut off her upper body's clothes and interior with a blade. Her satin-like, snow-white skin and towering breasts were like a soul-stirring painting that slowly unfolded. The problem was that Ding Ming's eyes did not show any desire. He was so calm that it was frightening. His hands were extremely steady, and the blade was even more accurate than a surgeon's scalpel. This guy must have killed countless people. Isendale was finally scared to tears. She screamed desperately, "Help! Help! Who can save me?" However, after she screamed, Ding Ming stopped. Isendale thought that Ding Ming had found his conscience. However, Ding Ming slowly got up, and a cloud of blue mist slowly floated out from behind him. The real body of the devil of Netherworld soon appeared. Found it? Ding Ming asked. The devil of Netherworld nodded. Yes, it's ready. We can leave at any time. Her expression was a little unnatural. Ding Ming obviously noticed it. He could not help but frown. What else? The devil of Netherworld looked at the naked Isendale on the ground. Do you want to take this woman with you? In her mind, the senior in the Divine Light warehouse was terrifyingly powerful. When she was unconscious, He had injected a lot of oppressive spiritual information into her, which made her instinctively fear the divine light warehouse. Now that Ding Meng was taken care of by that senior, she paid special attention to Ding Meng's actions. When she saw Ding Meng touching this beauty in the air and threatening her with a knife, she thought that Ding Meng had taken a fancy to this woman. After all, Ding Meng was at the age when he was most valiant about sex, so she misunderstood him. Ding Meng said impatiently, "Why take her away? Isn't it troublesome enough? I'll just melt her." Melt her? The devil of Netherworld was stunned. How? Use the parasitic immortal technique that I used to plunder the devouring world? Ding Meng was too lazy to explain to her. He turned around, bent down, and pressed his hand on Isendale's amazing breasts. "I can absorb her origin and turn her origin energy into mine." Hearing Ding Meng's words, Isendale's whole body turned cold. She was so cold that she couldn't speak. She could accept it if Ding Meng really did it with her body, but if he did it with her, she would rather die than live. At that time, she would become a cripple. A beauty like her, who could bring disaster to a country, would not end up as a human, but as a plaything. Isendale shouted desperately, "Miss Liang is not dead. I can't hurt her at all. She can turn into liquid. I don't even know where she went." Ding Meng was stunned. He did not know if this ghost woman was lying. Anyway, he could not sense Liang Yi's aura. The devil of Netherworld looked at Ding Meng and said, "Let's just take her away. She's immune to many of my poisons. I still have a lot of things to ask her. There's not much time left. If the enemy's mirror transmits more experts, we won't be able to leave." Ding Meng suddenly woke up. This was the most important thing. They had to leave this place first. Now that he had the divine light energy, the mission given to him by Little Rascal had been completed. "Okay, let's go." Although his tone was relaxed, his attitude was not polite at all. He grabbed Isendale's ankle with one hand and dragged her along the ground. He did not care whether she was delicate or beautiful. He only wanted to rub her on the ground. He wanted her to know that if she dared to go against him, she would suffer as much as she could. It wasn't until Ding Meng and the other two's figures had completely disappeared into the horizon that a slender, jade-like hand reached out from the black hole. Ling Xingqi's face was covered in dirt as she crawled out from the abyss. She took the opportunity to remove the translucent cloth that was wrapped around her body. This was the Star Rainbow Corporation's black technology, Thousand Light feather cloth. It was also made from the biological fiber of the frogman. This cloth could be used to camouflage and avoid almost all detection and detection, especially origin energy perception and telekinesis. In fact, it was easy to understand. So what if Ling Xingqi could escape? If she really wanted to run far, she would have to use all her origin energy or even martial arts to avoid aura. With Ding Meng's strength, he would still be able to find her if she walked a few hours ahead of him. Thus, Ling Xingqi did not go far. Instead, she used this life-saving equipment to hide in the wreckage of the spaceship. Who would have thought that Ding Meng's last attack would be so destructive that it created such a long canyon? If Wu Cangjin and the others had not absorbed most of Ding Meng's firepower before they died, she probably would have died as well. Ling Xingqi struggled to stand up and staggered a few steps forward. She looked at the devastated land, and large drops of tears rolled down her cheeks. Not only was the energy plan that she had worked on for so many years destroyed, so many of her elders had died because of her. They were now sleeping in this desolate land, and this made her heart feel like it was being stabbed by a knife. Moreover, her best friend Isendale had been abused and humiliated by Ding Meng and then taken away. Ling Xingqi had never experienced such a setback or such a big failure in her life. "Ding Meng, I will remember you." Ling Xingqi looked at the gray sky and gritted her teeth until they bled. "One day, I will make you kneel in front of me and beg me. I promise. I swear." Chapter 704. Holy Grail Federation, Starbao Group Headquarters. Jin Xiaoyan hurriedly knocked on the door of the CEO's office. Ling Xingxian, who was sitting in front of her desk, raised her head in surprise. Her secretary had always been a steady person, and she had never done anything rash. However, this time, She had rushed in without any prior notice. It seemed that the matter she had to report was not a small one. Looking at the anxious Jin Xiaoyan, the transit string was very calm. Xiaoyan, what's the matter? Sit down and tell me slowly. Jin Xiaoyan did not dare to sit down at all. She walked to the desk and pondered, as if she was thinking about what to say. After a long time, she said, Miss Ling, I just received news that the Great Star Spiral New Energy Project 3 in the Fertile Chalk system has failed. Oh, the transit string was a little surprised. She slowly stood up from her seat. What happened? Jin Xiaoyan said, The energy crystals have disappeared. The new energy has been taken away. The transit string suddenly calmed down. Who did it? Jin Xiaoyan said word by word. Ding Ming from the Shanghao group. The transit string's expression did not change. No wonder there hasn't been any news about him recently. It turns out that he went to the Fertile Chalk system. So, Big Sis and the others were one step behind? Jin Xiaoyan took a deep breath and said, According to news from the base, Ding Ming defeated more than 10 of our Battle Saint seniors by himself and took away the new energy. She thought the transit string would be shocked. Who knew that the transit string would be so calm? How is Big Sis? Jin Xiaoyan said, Big Sis is fine. What about the others? The transit string asked. Jin Xiaoyan said, With Senior Wu Cangjin as the leader, more than 10 Battle Saint seniors have all fallen. Miss Eisen from the Rainbow family was also taken away by Ding Ming. The transit string frowned. Eisendel? Jin Xiaoyan nodded affirmatively. It's her. The transit string asked again, Where's Ding Ming now? Jin Xiaoyan shook her head and said, All the international space stations, all our fleets, and all the bases in outer space failed to find Ding Ming's whereabouts. It is speculated that he is no longer in the space zones under the control of the Federal Empire. According to the message sent back, Ding Ming left with the leader of a swallowing sector in the end. Her words were simple and accurate, but the amount of information they contained was enormous. It was not something that could be digested in a short period of time. The transit string stared at the screen on the table and remained silent for a long time. But her expression had always been calm, so calm that it made people feel scared. Even Jin Xiaoyan, who had always been familiar with her president's style of doing things, felt strange. After a long time, the transit string said faintly, I understand. Xiaoyan, you can go out now. Jin Xiaoyan seemed to want to say something, but when she saw the expressionless face of the transit string, she did not dare to say anything. She also knew that the teachers of the Ling sisters were Wu Cangjin and the others. They were very respectful to these seniors, who were also first-class experts of the Xinhong group. So many of them had been killed by Ding Ming. No matter how much Miss Ling appreciated Ding Ming, she was afraid that this time there would be a death grudge between them. The key was that Ding Ming was also a member of the Shanghao group, which was very dangerous. She also had her own unique understanding of the three sisters of the Ling family. The eldest daughter, Ling Xingqi, was extremely talented and had amazing strength. She also had a large number of experts around her, which was the most important strength of the president. The second daughter, Ling Xingwen, was good at singing and dancing and was good at socializing. She had a lot of connections and was also very appreciated by the president. Although the third daughter, the transit string, seemed ordinary in all aspects, she knew that Miss Ling was the most powerful one. Miss Ling had always been low-key and patient and rarely made a move. Once she made a move, she would use thunderous and extreme means, which was enough to doom people eternally. This time, Ding Ming was probably really done for. Jin Xiaoyan left the office with this judgment. As soon as she stepped out, a remote real-time projection connected to the center of the office. Ling Zhixing, who was wearing a suit and leather shoes, appeared in front of the transit string with a dignified bearing. Ling Zhixing also looked very calm. He did not look as angry as she had imagined. The calmness of the father and daughter of a Ling family was really admirable. Dad! The transit string took the initiative to speak. She knew that the old man would not come to her if there was nothing important. Ling Zhixing said lightly, Xingxian, you should know now, right? The transit string nodded slowly. Dad, I already know. Ling Zhixing said, "What do you think of this matter?" The transit string said decisively, "I'm sure that this Shengguang energy source will not fall into the hands of the Shenghao group." Ling Zhixing said, "Oh." The transit string said, "Ding Meng was able to take away the energy crystal. This alone proves that he is a martial artist of the Star Mao group. A martial artist of the Star Mao group does not need a backer like the Shenghao group. From this, we can see that he must have another purpose for joining the Shenghao group." Ling Zhixing said meaningfully, "This Ding Meng has created conflicts time and time again, starting from the Flying Star City, then Planet V9, Planet Perry, Planet Poison Dragon, and now even the energy source of the Starspin core transport ship has been taken away. With the personalities of your eldest sister and second sister, this is already a thorn in their side." The transit string asked calmly, "You want to get rid of him?" Ling Zhixing said lightly, "That's not difficult." The transit string said, "I don't agree." Ling Zhixing sneered, "I know that you have some personal ties with Ding Meng, but this time, Old Wu and the others did not even keep their souls. Someone has to pay for this result." The transit string suddenly said, "Dad, do you agree with what my eldest sister and second sister have done?" Ling Zhixing's expression turned cold. "You're always questioning, but you've never considered things from the perspective of your eldest sister and second sister." The transit string took a deep breath. Ding Meng should have been an important talent of the Starglow group. But why is he standing on the opposite side of us now? "Dad, have you ever thought about this?" Ling Zhixing said lightly, "It's nothing more than a matter of interest." The transit string said, "No, it's because we haven't paid enough attention to him." Ling Zhixing asked with interest, "We haven't paid enough attention to him?" The transit string sighed, which was rare. "When he was still in Starlight University, I knew that he would have an extraordinary future. It's a pity that he flew into a wormhole that time." Ling Zhixing said, "It's a pity, but no one expected him to come back alive." The transit string said, "What did my eldest sister and second sister do while he was away? They used the refugees for medical research and forced his lovers and friends. In the end, they didn't take him seriously until the incidents in the Flying Star City and the V9 base happened. There are already several signals. Why didn't we pay attention to them?" Ling Zhixing said seriously, "What do you mean by paying attention to them?" The transit string said, "Now that things have happened, my personal opinion is that we can put the revenge aside for now. Since the energy is in his hands, we should consider how to cooperate with him and get a share of the profits from him. According to my understanding of him, he's not an unreasonable fighter. On the contrary, he's a man who values friendship." Ling Zhixing said lightly, "Kindness doesn't lead soldiers. Righteousness doesn't lead wealth. Such a person's achievements will be limited no matter how great they are." The transit string was never one to pick up the topic of his father. He continued, "The only thing I know for sure is that the divine light energy is in his hands. The best result is that he can give us a part of it." Ling Zhixing said meaningfully, "Can't we ask him to give it all to us?" The transit string asked back, "If you ask a fighter from planet Mao to give us all the precious divine light energy, would he be willing to do so?" Ling Zhixing said proudly, "It's not a matter of whether he's willing or not. It's a matter of whether he's willing or not." The transit string suddenly raised his head. "Are we going to use our core forces?" Ling Zhixing said, "You're not confident?" The transit string shook his head and said, "I know you can do it, but I don't recommend it because the price is too high. We can't go against him anymore. In the worst-case scenario, even if we can't get the energy, we can't let him stand against us anymore." Ling Zhixing showed a thoughtful expression. "If we want to work with him, with his status as a fighter from planet Mao, I'm afraid there's nothing in our Starbao group that he'd like." Seeing that her father's tone had finally softened, the transit string nodded in satisfaction. "As long as he's human, he'll have his likes and dislikes and weaknesses. As long as we can find his weakness and wait for the right time, we'll have a chance." Ling Zhixing stared at her. "You're confident, right?" The transit string shook his head and said, "I'm not confident. Opportunities can come and go at any time." Ling Zhixing said, but at least you have a clear train of thought. You haven't let it get to your head. The transit string didn't answer. She neither admitted nor denied it. When it came to deeper topics, she kept her mouth shut. Ling Zhixing stared at her for a long time before letting out a long sigh. Xingxian, you're just like your mother. You're excellent in all aspects, but sometimes you think too much, especially when it comes to doubts. I think you should be more open-minded. He was just short of saying that among the three Ling sisters, the transit string was the most scheming. Her shrewdness wasn't something that Ling Xingqi and Ling Xingwen could compare to. The transit string sighed softly and said, "Dad, I want to be alone with this matter. Please give me some time to sort out my thoughts." Ling Zhixing was silent for a moment before he said, "Xingqi's plan number 3 has failed. The focus will be shifted to plan number 1 and plan number 2. Since you have a different understanding of Ding Ming, then I'll leave the aftermath of Old Wu's matter to you. You have 3 months. If you can't come up with a satisfactory answer in 3 months, then your position will be replaced by a new CEO." The remote real-time projection soon ended, and the room returned to silence. The transit string walked back to her desk, opened the drawer under the desk, and took out an old paper photo. The person in the photo was an elegant young woman with a sweet smile on her face. Her smile was so innocent that it was enough to warm anyone's heart. The transit string stared at the photo in a daze. After staring at it for a long time, she stuffed the photo back into the drawer and muttered to herself, "Maybe this is the last chance. The only chance." Chapter 705. In Blue Pole Star City, the last ray of light slowly fell, and stars appeared in the sky. It was already evening when the lights were lit. A luxurious shuttle slowly descended from the sky, breaking the silence of Huading Villa. After the door opened, Lan Bing and Yuling Wei, dressed in formal business attire, came out together. Obviously, they had finished their work for the day and were returning home. Lan Bing was a moving scenery wherever she went, but this time there was another beautiful scenery standing at the gate of the villa. The transit string stood quietly opposite her in an elegant windbreaker and knee-high boots. She had both a kind of leisure laziness and a generous elegance, which was completely different from her previous image of being high and mighty. A smile appeared on Lan Bing's face. "What a rare guest, Manager Ling. It's hard to see a big shot like you in this small place." The transit string smiled and walked over slowly. "I've been on vacation recently, so I came back to Blue Pole Star City to relax when I had nothing to do. I didn't expect to pass by here by chance and meet you. It's really fate." With Lan Bing's shrewdness, she would never believe her words. First of all, the fact that the transit string came here alone was very telling. This person usually went out with a retinue of people, and her secretary and bodyguards never left her side. However, Lan Bing didn't notify her through the group's official channels and appeared at the door of her private house on time. There were many reasons behind this. Lan Bing turned her head and said, "Sister Wei, you go back first. I want to talk to Manager Ling alone." Yu Lingwei also saw the knack, but she hesitated and said, "Manager Lan, Secretary Ding is not with you recently." About your safety, Lan Bing smiled and said, "It's okay. Manager Ling is the CEO of the Xinghong headquarters. He won't embarrass me, a small person in charge of the Blue Moon branch of Xinghao." The transit string smiled and said, "Manager Lan, you must be joking. I'm really here to relax." Yu Lingwei looked at the transit string and then at Lan Bing. Lan Bing smiled confidently, so Yu Lingwei got back into the shuttle car. It wasn't until the shuttle lifted off and left that the transit string showed an apologetic look. "I'm sorry for my sudden visit. I should have informed you in advance." Lan Bing smiled even more happily. "Don't mention it. I'm really honored that Manager Ling is willing to visit my humble home. If Manager Ling doesn't mind, please come in." "Humble abode?" The transit string smiled meaningfully. "Miss Lan, if your Huading number 2 is my humble abode, then the other private mansions are all thatched huts." She suddenly changed her address to Miss Lan. Lan Bing was also well aware of the knack. The senior executives of large groups often tried not to call each other by official title when they were discussing in order to get closer to each other. It could be seen that the transit string didn't come with bad intentions. There must be something to discuss. The two walked side by side into the lotus pond in the courtyard, looking at the waterside pavilion and all kinds of beautiful scenery. The transit string couldn't help but exclaim. It said that this used to be the mansion of the young master of Tianheng. But after Miss Lan worked in the Blue Moon branch, young master, you bought it. Today I come in and see it. It really lives up to its reputation. It's a real lotus pond and a beautiful lake. Lan Bing smiled and said, Miss Ling, I'm just working for someone. The transit string asked meaningfully, is this a fairy tale of a prince and Cinderella? Other people definitely wouldn't dare to ask such a question, but the transit string was different. Her status was there, so Lan Bing couldn't say anything. She sighed faintly and said, Anjie is too busy. He rarely comes here. The transit string stared at her closely, determined not to miss any expression on her face. With all due respect, Miss Lan, the relationship between you and young Master Yu is generally not very optimistic. This was the truth. Lan Bing knew that Yu Anjie was the young master of Shenghao Group after all. He was a rich and powerful young master. Although Lan Bing also had the raw capital of a woman, she was born in the grassroots and her background was too weak. This didn't mean that she wasn't worthy of him, but if something big happened to Shenghao Group, as Yu Anjie's other half, she might not be able to withstand the crisis. In fact, this wasn't the first time she had experienced this kind of thing. She had experienced it in Haitian Group before, but Chu Ming Liang, Chu Yifeng, and the others were all played to death by her. To be precise, Chu Yifeng was killed by her, and Chu Ming Liang was killed by her through Ding Ming. Lan Bing didn't argue. She turned her head and said with a smile, Miss Ling, you have many suitors, but you have never been involved in any scandals. I admire this. The transit string was already prepared for this and immediately explained jokingly, maybe my standards are too high? Lan Bing was amused. I heard that the young master of Tianheng is your loyal fan. The CEO of Tianheng even asked someone to matchmake with CEO Ling. The transit string smiled. You have a good source of information. There is indeed such a thing. Young Master Jing is indeed outstanding, a dragon among men, but his personality is still a little weak. Lan Bing also smiled. Could it be that Miss Ling likes someone with a strong personality? The transit string shook her head and said, whether a man is strong or not is not determined by his personality. You must know that a man's strength is usually related to his strength. Lan Bing pondered and said, Mr. Zheng Haodong's strength shouldn't be too bad. After all, he is a major general in the Federation military. The transit string smiled in surprise. Your gossipy heart is even thicker than mine. Lan Bing said happily, don't women talk about these things when they are together? It's just like when men talk about women. The transit string pondered and said, Haodong is actually not bad, but I keep feeling that there is something missing. As for what it is, I can't tell. Lan Bing smiled. It seems that your standards are really high. Looking at the young talents in the Federation, I'm afraid that none of them can catch your eye. The transit string smiled and shook her head. That's not necessarily true. I have my eyes on one person, but he is a little different. Oh, Lan Bing said in surprise. I'm also very curious about someone who can make Miss Ling look at him in a different light. The transit string stared at her and said word by word, This is your subordinate, Ding Ming, Secretary Ding. The real purpose of her trip was to leak information about Ding Ming to Lan Bing in another way. This was a very important part of her plan. If she couldn't open this loophole, then the rest of her plan would be useless. Lan Bing smiled and said, Miss Ling's taste is really unique. Just Ding Ming's height doesn't match your devilish figure, does it? This was also the truth. Ding Ming was thin and weak, and he was only 7 meters tall. According to the Federation standards, he was the shortest among men. Lan Bing and the transit string were both tall beauties. When they put on their heels, they were almost 8 meters tall. Therefore, if they walked in front and Ding Ming walked behind them, then it was indeed a true portrayal of a leader and a secretary. The transit string stopped smiling and sighed deeply. Secretary Ding's appearance is indeed very ordinary. It doesn't matter if a man's appearance is ordinary. Strength is very important. Lan Bing said in a low voice, "There are a lot of battle saints in the Shenghao group and the Xinghong group. Ding Ming is just one of them." The transit string looked at her meaningfully. But Secretary Ding's speed of growth is unique. "Miss Lan, how much do you know about Secretary Ding's true strength?" At this moment, the two had reached the end of the bluestone road in the corridor beside the pool. Lan Bing didn't answer her question. Instead, she said, "Miss Ling, it's not my style to stand outside and chat. Why don't we talk inside?" The transit string smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble you." The living facilities on the first floor of the villa seemed simple, but the functions were actually very advanced. As soon as Lan Bing came in, the light automatically lit up, the air circulation system pushed out warm air, and the humidity was automatically adjusted, creating a comfortable feeling of returning home. Lan Bing habitually took off her suit jacket, revealing a white blouse. Her graceful curves were faintly discernible, making her even more attractive. The transit string also took off her windbreaker. She was wearing a black knitted blouse underneath. Her curves were also amazing, not inferior to Lan Bing's at all. If other men were present, they would definitely be attracted to these two. Usually, their clothes were very tight. At this moment, their hidden charm was even more mature. The transit string looked at Lan Bing and smiled. "Speaking of which, it's strange. Your place gives me a feeling that I haven't felt in a long time. I suddenly feel hungry." Lan Bing smiled. "Miss Ling, what would you like to eat? I'll get the butler to prepare it." The transit string said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "The AI butler's food does look, smell, and taste good, but it doesn't feel like it's cooked with care." In other words, she wanted Lan Bing to cook dinner herself. This was impossible under normal circumstances. Unexpectedly, Lan Bing agreed with a smile. "Miss Ling, my culinary skills are very ordinary. I'm afraid it won't satisfy you." The transit string smiled. "Culinary skills don't matter if it's good or bad, but whether or not you put in the effort. You came because of its reputation, so you can't go back disappointed, right?" Lan Bing stared at her and nodded silently. "Since Miss Ling has the heart, then I'll do it." There was a small door behind the screen on the west side of the hall. After opening it, there was an exquisite and small multifunctional kitchen. There was a dazzling variety of things. Lan Bing had already put on an apron and rolled up her sleeves. She took out some simple ingredients from the freezer. Just by looking at these ingredients, the transit string knew what kind of dinner Lan Bing was going to make. It should be egg fried rice, 3 delicacies tofu, mushroom fried chicken, and steamed sea bass. Lan Bing praised. "Miss Ling is indeed an expert." The transit string also praised. "Miss Lan, you're the real expert." The two of them were pure natural goddesses. They paid extra attention to their health. Due to the excessive amount of social activities, their diet was even more strict. This dinner was clearly light and healthy, which suited the transit string's appetite. It was obvious that Lan Bing was a very attentive person. Chapter 706. Dinner was not ready yet, but the kitchen was already overflowing with aroma. Lan Bing stood beside the cupboard, carefully peeling a piece of potato with a delicate knife. The transit string did not disturb her. She just watched her cut the vegetables with interest. "Miss Lan, I'm really impressed by you again." Lan Bing turned her head curiously. "Oh." The transit string stepped forward with a smile, rolled up her sleeves, picked up a knife, and carefully cut the green onions. Lan Bing was surprised to find that the transit string's hands were not only steady, but her knife skills were also quite skilled. In fact, she was not inferior to her. The knife skills used in cooking were completely different from the knife skills used by martial artists. To some extent, the knife skills used in cooking were far more difficult than the knife skills used in martial arts. The knife skills used by martial artists were nothing more than a combination of speed, strength, and direction, aiming to defeat the enemy. The knife skills used in cooking were more about balance, meticulous, and focused like an art. Obviously, The transit string was someone who had practiced. Lan Bing laughed self-deprecatingly. I'm really sorry. I thought that a lady from a prestigious family like you would rarely enter the kitchen. It seems that I'm shallow. The transit string smiled as she cut the green onions. When I was young, after a tiring day, the happiest thing was to enjoy the egg-fried rice my mother made with her own hands. I will never forget the taste in my memory. When she said this, the transit string's expression was full of nostalgia for the past, but also seemed to be filled with endless sighs. Lan Bing stared at her. She really could not see through the woman in front of her. She and the transit string had something in common, and that was that they understood men too well. However, the difference between her and the transit string was that she did not understand women, while the transit string understood women very well. The transit string seemed to know what she was thinking and took the initiative to explain with a smile. I said that I came to Blue Pole Star City this time to relax. Although the exchanges and conflicts between the groups make everyone stand on different sides, it does not affect the personal relationship between us. Lan Bing smiled. I hope so. For her, it was necessary to rely on Yuan Jie and win over Ding Ming, but there was no need for her to offend someone as powerful as the transit string, especially such a beautiful woman whom she enjoyed getting along with. Dinner was soon served on the table. Although the dishes were simple, the two of them had a good appetite. A plate of tofu, a plate of fish, 2 plates of chicken, and a small bowl of fried rice. Transit string finished all of it. Seeing that he still wanted more, Lan Bing opened a bottle of red wine. Transit string sighed with satisfaction as she held her goblet. Before, I didn't think highly of you and young Master Yu, but now my opinion has changed a lot. Miss Lan, your cooking skills are enough to keep any man's stomach. Lan Bing smiled. You flatter me. That's because Miss Ling is a guest today. If you were the owner of this place, I wouldn't dare to embarrass myself at all. Besides, I only know how to cook these simple dishes. Transit string said seriously. That's not true. The simpler something is, the harder it is to cook. Take this egg fried rice, for example. Do you want to say that there's any skill involved in it? Actually, there's no skill involved. However, some people can cook dishes that are very appetizing, and some people can't eat them. At the very least, I ate 3 bowls of your egg fried rice in a row. What kind of good food haven't I eaten before? At the very least, your dinner today was unforgettable. Lan Bing pondered, as if she was savoring the meaning of her words. Maybe it's because you're with the right person that you have an appetite, right? Transit string finally revealed her unique, sly smile. Do you know why I came to visit you today? Lan Bing said. I'd like to hear the details. Transit string said meaningfully, because we might be the same kind of people. Lan Bing asked curiously. Oh, Transit string said, from your skillful cooking skills, I can tell that you lived a hard life when you were young. Although your hands are well maintained, there are still calluses between your fingers. Not only did you have to go out to make a living, but you also had to do the housework when you came home. Lan Bing remained silent and didn't answer. Her childhood was too far away from her. It was indeed a hard time, but she was hardworking, simple, happy, and full of hope for the future. It was completely different from now. Transit string sighed. Actually, I was the same. Back then, I had to carry the spinach that I picked from the mountains to the town to sell. After working hard for a day, I looked forward to eating my mother's egg fried rice. Although it was just a small dish, it was the happiest thing for me every day. Lan Bing looked at the other party in shock. She never thought that the usually high and mighty transit string would have such a past. I heard that Boss Ling has a total of 4 wives. I always thought it was just a rumor, Lan Bing asked carefully. Transit string shook her head. You're wrong. He has a total of 5 wives. My mother was his 5th wife. Lan Bing knew that there were many grudges between rich and powerful families. It seemed that Transit string also had an unknown past when she was young. She asked carefully again, Is your mother doing well? Transit string's face was expressionless. She died 52 years, 7 months, and 3 days ago. Lan Bing hurriedly said, I'm sorry. Transit string waved her hand. It's okay. It's normal to get sick and die. She was saying that it was normal but in reality, it was very abnormal. Ling Xingxian was not even 60 years old, and her mother had died 52 years ago. In other words, Ling Xingxian had lost her family when she was very young. Lan Bing frowned. "Why are you telling me this?" Ling Xingxian sipped a mouthful of wine and sighed. "Because I know the price a lonely woman must have to pay to get to where she is today." Lan Bing said seriously, "I'm still different from you." Transit String nodded. "I know. After all, I have the advantage of Starbao Group. You had nothing at that time. You started from scratch." Lan Bing shook her head and said, "I didn't start from scratch in the true sense." Transit String said, "I also know that you once stayed in Haitian Group for a long time." Lan Bing's experience was no secret to big shots like Transit String. As early as when she and Yu Anjie confirmed their relationship, the Yu family had investigated her past. She believed that Transit String must have paid attention to this information. Lan Bing suddenly smiled. "Miss Ling, I really don't understand. Why are you suddenly so interested in me?" Transit String slowly stood up, as if she was thinking about what to say. After pacing back and forth a few times, she slowly said, "Dingming left Blue Pole Star City a few months ago, right?" Lan Bing immediately became vigilant. Transit String continued. "Dingming secretly went to Beidou. If I'm not wrong, he went there to investigate the so-called sea-level dark matter residue of your Shenghao group. There was no need to deny this kind of thing in front of Transit String. If she dared to say it, she must have done her homework in advance." Lan Bing replied decisively, "Yes." Transit String showed a sly smile again. "Are you wondering? Why did Ding Ming suddenly lose contact with us after he went to Beidou and no news came back?" Lan Bing's expression remained unchanged. "Maybe you know more than I do." Transit String glanced at her and said leisurely, "Ding Ming found the source and stole the energy source. He killed more than a dozen respected battle saints of the Star Rainbow Group, seriously injured my elder sister, and kidnapped Miss Eisen of the Rainbow family. Now his whereabouts are unknown. Even I don't know where he went. I heard that he ran away with a sect master of the Devouring Realm. This information was definitely not accessible to the higher-ups of Shenghao Group, including those at Yu Anjie's level, so one could imagine the storm in Lan Bing's heart. However, Lan Bing's expression remained cold and indifferent. Just based on this point, Transit String's eyes were filled with admiration. This was the calmness that a person who did great things should have. "Sure enough," Lan Bing said in a deep voice, "Miss Ling, can I take this as a sign that Star Rainbow Group and Shenghao Group are about to have a big head-on conflict? Or is this a friendly reminder from you out of sympathy for a woman?" Transit String waved her hand and said, "Ding Ming killed people, but that's not the point. The point is that the energy source is in his hands. Shenghao Group wants this energy source, but Shenghao doesn't know about it. The point is that you want it too." Lan Bing frowned. "I don't understand what you mean." Transit String stared at her. "You should understand, and you should understand better than most of us, what kind of energy source that is." Lan Bing said suspiciously. "Oh." Transit String said, "Why was Chu Yifeng sent to the K8 series by the Chu family back then? The K8 series was the black gold base on the Dead Silent Star. Why did Ding Ming suddenly transform into an origin energy user? Later on, the Dead Silent Star experienced a great catastrophe. Why did you and Ding Ming return to the black gold base? Later on, why did Chu Mingliang and the others from the Haitian group suddenly appear underground on the Bramble Planet? Were all these events just coincidences?" Lan Bing knew that she could not hide it any longer. She could only sigh. "Yes, divine light energy." Transit String laughed again. "Miss Lan, although you are very cautious, there are many suspicious points about you. However, your beauty and aura cover up these suspicious points, so no one investigated you in detail." Lan Bing's face became expressionless. "So you investigated me in detail?" Transit String said seriously, "You have been with the Chu family for many years. As far as I know, Chu Yifeng respects you as if you were a celestial being. He does not dare offend you in the slightest. Of course, this can be explained by his obsession with you. Based on your performance in the Haitian group, you would have become Chu Yifeng's wife sooner or later. However, not only did you not, that old man Chu Mingliang even wanted to take you as his concubine. Lan Bing said, "What can this prove?" Transit String said, "These are all very normal things. Men are aggressive carnivores. How can they not be tempted by beauty? However, the problem is that after Chu Mingliang announced that he wanted to take you as his concubine, Chu Mingliang and Chu Yifeng mysteriously died. There are many witnesses to Chu Mingliang's death, so this cannot be faked. However, what about Chu Yifeng? How did he die?" Lan Bing's heart skipped a beat, but she was still very calm. Many people died in the Battle of the Droplet on the Bramble Planet. He was no exception. Even Ding Meng was sucked into the wormhole. Chapter 707. The Transit String Side. Yes, many people died at that time, but Chu Yifeng did not die on the expedition because he did not appear from the beginning to the end. So the only explanation is that he died on the Haitian group's exploration ship. Lan Bing could only sigh in admiration. This was not the first time she had experienced the transit string's prowess. The transit string was always able to accurately find clues from the many disorderly fragments. The transit string sneered. Ding Meng had already been captured by you at that time, but then Ding Meng magically appeared on the expedition. Was Chu Yifeng being kind? Or was Chu Mingliang being merciful? How did he let him go? Lan Bing did not say anything. The transit string stared at her. The logical explanation is that you used Ding Meng to get rid of Chu Yifeng on the exploration ship. The reason is very simple. You did not want to marry into the Chu family because Chu Yifeng had harmed all your family members in order to get you. You have been holding back all this time, waiting for a good opportunity to get rid of him. The transit string had a strange expression again. But this guess is also not logical. You had clearly helped Ding Meng deal with Ding Meng time and time again. Logically speaking, Ding Meng should be your old rival. Why would he help you instead? There must be a secret behind this. At that time, Ding Meng's strength had already surpassed yours. He had Xinguang technology in his hands, and you had nothing to offer him to cooperate with you obediently. So, if I'm not wrong, you must have offered your first time to him for him to cooperate with you. No matter how good Lan Bing's temper was, she could not help but retort, "Nonsense." The transit string ignored her anger. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, only you know in your heart. Lan Bing also stood up and stared at her. "What exactly are you trying to say?" The transit string continued. "The second point of suspicion is that after Ding Meng returned to the Federation, I had not even figured out that Su Mengqing was Ding Meng in disguise, but you recruited Ding Meng before us. How do you know that Su Mengqing is Ding Meng? If you say that there is no love affair between the two of you, I will definitely not believe it." Lan Bing could not speak, but her face was already turning a little pale. Ling Xingxian said, "You and young master, you have been in a relationship for quite some time now. From what I know, Yuan Jie is such a playboy, yet he has never touched you even once. However, even though you look so pure and innocent, you have already had a man." Lan Bing could not take it anymore. "What makes you think that?" The transit string looked at her again and sighed. "CEO Lan, you really don't know how to act. Why can I tell? It's because I've had a man before. I had a man when I was 11 years old. He was an old man who was so ugly that it made people want to vomit. He only used a box of nutrient solution to get me and ravaged me for an entire night." Lan Bing was stunned again. She could not imagine such a thing happening. The transit string took another sip of wine. She looked a little dazed. "Of course, I could have rejected him at that time. But if I had, I probably would not have made it through that night. I had to get that box of nutrient solution. Otherwise, I would have starved to death." Lan Bing sighed faintly. "But you still survived." The transit string sneered again. "So, as long as I come into contact with another woman, I can tell at a glance whether she has had a relationship with a man or not. Unfortunately, from the first day I met you, I knew that the man you had been with was not Yuan Jie. Of course, I'm not interested in your private life. But since Ding Meng suddenly became your secretary, I knew that the situation was different." Lan Bing asked, "What's the difference?" The transit string said, You're on the same side. Your goal is Xinguang energy. You want to use the powerful resources of Sheng Hao Group to get it. So, you're using Yuanjie and Sheng Hao Group. Lan Bing said, it's normal for men and women to use each other. The transit string said, but now that Ding Meng has angered Xing Hong Group, do you think Xing Hao Group can protect him? Or do you think you can protect him? It's true that the Yu family is protective of their own. You may also think that the senior management of Sheng Hao Group will fight back against Xing Hong Group's anger. But let me tell you, the seniors Ding Meng killed this time are all old men who have been loyal to the Ling family for many years. My father and eldest sister will never let this go. Given your relationship with Yuanjie, will he help you? Will he be able to? In other words, will he stand up for you? Are you and Ding Meng worth him standing up for you? These words were powerful and resonant. Every word hit Lan Bing's weak spot. She immediately fell into deep thought. Of course, she also knew very well that the transit string was not threatening her. She was just stating the facts. The transit string continued to add fuel to the fire. What's more, Yuanjie doesn't really trust you. The female secretary beside you is obviously spying on you. Even an outsider like me can see that, let alone others. So you're stuck in a difficult position. Ding Meng has disappeared without a trace. When the time comes, in the maelstrom of Sheng Hao and Xing Hong Group's confrontation, you will be the first cannon fodder to be used by both sides. You won't be able to escape even if you want to. The hall suddenly fell silent. It was so quiet that they could almost hear each other's heartbeats. Both of them were thinking quickly, weighing the pros and cons. Lan Bing suddenly sighed. What about you? Why did you come to me? The transit string stared at her. If you really want me to reason, I always feel that a woman working hard to climb up the ladder is wrong. Although we know that this is a world dominated by men, it doesn't mean that women can't survive. Lan Bing stared at her. No, in my impression, you're a very powerful person in Xing Hong Group. You are different from your father and the other senior management. The transit string was a little surprised. Oh, how can I be different? Lan Bing said. If I can describe it, the open and secret struggle between Sheng Hao Group and Xing Hong Group for many years is like a game of chess. The Ling family is the most important player on the chessboard, but you are not. No matter how you look, I know you are definitely not. The transit string said. That's quite a novel way to put it. Lan Bing stared straight at her. Every step you take is very careful. You look gentle, but in fact, you take risks. You are more like a chess player than a chess piece. The transit string sighed. To be able to get such an evaluation from you, it proves that I didn't misjudge you. To do big things, you naturally need a big picture. Similarly, to achieve the same goal, you also need like-minded people. Lan Bing calmed down. What do you need me to do? The transit string shook her head and said, you are wrong. As I said, I came to Blue Pole Star City, this time simply to relax. It was fate that I met you. Not only do I admire you very much, but this dinner also left a deep impression on me. If you have free time, you can come to St. Splendor to find me. I promise that I will personally cook for you. As she spoke, she put down the wine glass. With a flip of her finger, a glittering card appeared on the table. This kind of glittering business card was very high in technology. Only those high-ranking people with great power could customize it. Once it was activated, no matter where that person was, the business card could automatically activate that person's wrist guard through the International Space Network and contact that person at any time, anywhere. Lan Bing picked up the business card. There were only 3 glittering letters in the glittering card. LXX, which was the abbreviation of transit string. Since the transit string had given her a personal business card, it proved that she trusted her very much. The transit string said seriously, no matter what happens in the future, I hope that our private relationship will not change. I will always have a door open for you. Remember, it is not the Starbow Group that has opened the door for you, but my personal sincerity to you. As she spoke, she slowly turned around. It is getting late, and it is time to say goodbye. Thank you very much for your hospitality. I hope that I will have the opportunity to be a host in the future. By the way, one last friendly reminder for you. Ding Meng escaped from the fertile chalk galaxy with the sect master of the Sevenfold Mountain family, Lung Yin. Lung Yin has a nickname. She is called the Nine Serenity's Devil. With a clang, the door was closed. The transit string had left, but Lan Bing still sat there without moving. She was covered in a dark cloud from head to toe. She had never felt so horrified before. She had always been conceited that she was the most outstanding one among the women, but now it seemed that she was wrong. This transit string was the most terrifying one. Even when she was under house arrest in the Haitian group, she didn't feel any fear. She wasn't even afraid of Ding Meng, who was extremely powerful. However, this Ling Xingxian gave her an unfathomable feeling. Lan Bing organized her thoughts again. She realized that the third miss of the Ling family was indeed an unpredictable character. Ever since the transit string appeared in the public eye, she had never shown her martial strength. She had always been working for the Starbao Group through gentle diplomatic means. However, if one looked closely, she would appear and disappear in the various projects and events of the Starbao Group. This was a person who could not be ignored. After thinking for a while, she took out another wristband from the bag on the sofa. This was her personal wristband. She would only use it to contact the people she trusted the most. However, when she held the wristband in her hand, she felt an inexplicable sadness. All these years, the only person who was truly worthy of her trust was Meng Yan. She had maintained an instinctive vigilance against everyone else. However, she also knew that although Meng Yan was on Ding Meng's side, there was another force behind Ding Meng. If she wanted to find Ding Meng now, she had to tell Meng Yan this information. If there was anyone who could find Ding Meng in the vast outer space, then that person could only be Meng Yan. Chapter 708. On planet Pandora V4, in the depths of the poisonous forest, the sharp and exquisite three-pronged spaceship was parked on the lawn. The divine Aero spaceship's entire body was translucent, icy blue in color. At this moment, only Xinjie was working in the command hall inside the spaceship. The rest of the people were cultivating in the induction cabin. Not long after, a new signal popped up on the communication channel. Xinjie quickly picked it up. The person on the light screen was the four-eyed man holding a mountain in his mouth. However, when he saw Xinjie, the four-eyed man was very obedient. "Brother Jie," Xinjie said. "How is it? Is there any news?" The four-eyed man said, "We found Sister Xia. Sister Xia is with Miss Liang. Miss Iran from Blue Pole Star City has arranged for Long Feiyu to send them back." Xinjie was a little surprised. "They found Liang, The four-eyed man said, "but there is still no news of Brother Ding. We don't know where he is. The surprise attack and dragon-slaying groups have searched all over the world, but have not found him. Sister Xia and the others are about to arrive at planet KV-303. Xinjie nodded and said, "Okay, I got it. Come over as soon as possible." After the communication was disconnected, Jean Tai walked in from the connection cabin. "Brother Xinjie, Sister Yin is back." Only then did Xinjie stand up from his seat. He knew that Meng Yin must have brought news of Ding Meng back. Moreover, she had returned directly to base V4, which meant that the matter was still very important. Otherwise, Meng Yin could have directly communicated with him. After thinking about it, Xinjie decisively woke Little Rascal and the others up. Currently, the Divine Aero spaceship's energy was very low, mainly because Little Rascal and the others were cultivating. Now, only Little Rascal, Xiao AI, and Dai Yi were lying in the induction cabin. The main reason he had brought Dai Yi to planet V4 was because of the lack of manpower. After all, Jean Tai and the others were not enough to build the base on planet V4. A group of people quickly gathered on the lawn outside the spaceship. Little Rascal and Xiao AI's appearance had not changed much, but Meng Yin could feel that their auras were very exaggerated from afar. Compared to the last time they met, their strength had increased by at least 4 or 5 levels. They were even faster than Ding Meng. Not to mention the two of them, even Dai Yi was now in high spirits. The luster in his eyes was even more dazzling, and the color around his eyes had become a lot more foggy. It was obvious that his strength was also increasing. He was at least at the warlord level. Meng Yin secretly thought that this divine light energy was indeed worthy of being a super technology of the great god civilization. Seeing that it was Meng Yin, little rascal hurried over to greet her. "Where's Ding Meng?" Meng Yin shook her head and said, "He is indeed missing. I cannot find him either. However, there is new news." He was also a little anxious. Could something have happened? Meng Yin said, "According to Lil Bing, Mr. Ding Meng found the divine light energy, then killed more than 10 Battle Saint old monsters from the Star Rainbow Corporation, heavily injured Ling Xingqi, and kidnapped Eisendel from the Rainbow family. In the end, he escaped with Sect Master Lung Yin of the Seven Mountain family." Xinjia smiled bitterly. There's nothing this little brat doesn't dare to do to actually cause such a big ruckus. Little Rascal said, "Is there no other news?" Meng Yin said, "The news I heard is that Mr. Ding Meng departed from planet Beidou and infiltrated the Star Rainbow Corporation's Xujing base on planet Perry. In the end, he went to planet Poison Dragon in the Fertile Chalk system. Mr. Ding Meng was last seen on planet Poison Dragon. After that, there was no more news." Xinjie frowned and said, "That's not right. How did Lan Bing know about such a secret?" Meng Yin did not hide anything. A few days ago, the Star Rainbow Transit String personally visited her and told her this news. Little Rascal sighed. "Looks like we have to continue waiting." Xinjie pondered and said, "The ruckus this time is a little too big. In my opinion, KV-303's Green Arrow base can be retreated." Little Rascal asked curiously why. Xinjie said seriously that transit string was used to release a signal. "In my opinion, the Star Rainbow Corporation won't be as quiet as before. They will definitely take revenge. Now that Ding Meng isn't here, I'm afraid they will make a move on the refugee camp." Most people knew that Ding Meng had a lot of friends in the refugee camp on planet KV-303. Moreover, Ding Meng had always cared about that place. If they wanted to take revenge on Ding Meng while Ding Meng was away, Green Arrow Base would be the best place to do so. Dai couldn't help but say, "That can't be right. The Star Rainbow Corporation isn't an extreme pirate force after all. Do you think they would do something like pirates?" Xinjie's expression was grim. "They don't have to rob or kill. Just cutting off the surrounding supply lines will make life difficult for the captain, Yu Liang, and the others. Besides, Ding Meng killed a Battle Saint of the Star Rainbow Corporation. If more than 10 of our Battle Saints are killed, do you think we will let this go?" Meng Yin hesitated and said, "Do you want me to go and pick them up?" Xiao AI suddenly said, "If that's the case, this place will become unsafe soon. You should know that the Star Rainbow Corporation once built a base on planet V9. If they want to search, they will be able to find this place." Xinjie said decisively, "We will fly deeper into the Pandora system and go to the poison barrier planet where the toxins are thicker. Jin Tai and the others have the technology to build a base there." He hesitated and said, "If we retreat now, how will Ding Meng contact us if he returns?" Meng Yin said, "Miss Dai, don't worry. If Mr. Ding Meng returns, he will definitely meet up with Lil Bing. As long as he returns to Shenghao, we will be able to contact him." Xinjie shook his head and said, "He's not stupid. There's no way he would meet up with Lan Bing at this time. That would be selling his whereabouts. If I'm not wrong, he won't show up for a while. He is either in the Norse Empire or in the Devouring World." The Devouring World? Everyone was surprised. He couldn't help but say, the Federation and the Devouring World are like fire and water. Humans can't survive there at all. Meng Yin said, "Not necessarily. Mr. Ding Meng is immune to toxins and is very strong. He might be able to move around in the Devouring World. You should know that he is not an ordinary person." Xinjie nodded and said, "It is indeed possible. The key is that he escaped with the Devouring World's Sect Master. We don't know what exactly happened in the Fertile Chalk Galaxy. What we need to do now is to find a relatively safe place to hide and not drag him down." Everyone nodded. Only Meng Yin was lost in thought. If things were really as Xings said, then Lan Bing was definitely under a lot of pressure. After all, on the surface, Ding Ming's identity was Lan Bing's secretary. Although the Sheng Hao group and the Starbao group had always had small conflicts, they rarely had a big head-on conflict. This time, it was a big conflict in the standard sense. Hopefully, Mr. Ding Ming had gone in the direction of the Norse Empire. However, she didn't know Ding Ming as well as Xingia. At this moment, in the depths of outer space, an ostrich-like star beast was quietly flying in the darkness. This beast had a pair of dark blue wings on both sides, and its whole body was covered with tentacles and claws. This was the devouring world's space weapon, the Void Spirit Ray. It was flying in the direction of the devouring world's headquarters behind the Zyrtl star field. It was the poison cloud demon sea star system that made the humans of the Federation pale. As the devouring world's spiritual beast, the Void Spirit Ray was actually an extremely complicated life form. After the devouring world's commander level and above people died, if conditions permitted, their bodies and souls would be collected and placed in the so-called sacred lake to be refined. With the help of all kinds of natural treasures, it would take a long time to evolve into a Void Spirit Ray. Although the Void Spirit Ray didn't have as many advanced technology systems as human starships, a single Void Spirit Ray was powerful enough to rival one or even several large fleets of the Federation. First of all, its blue outer skin was made of high-grade soft glow material. It was basically invulnerable to weapons, water, and fire. Furthermore, it could withstand space storms. Without sufficient firepower, human starships couldn't break its skin at all. Just this alone was intimidating. Secondly, its internal structure was purely made of the bones, flesh, and large organs of the exotic beasts. There were a lot of spaces that could store all kinds of toxins and energy and accommodate different types of units. It didn't exist in a place like a command center. Everything was carried out by the sect master's consciousness. The Void Spirit Ray was equivalent to a strange fish in the universe. It wasn't easy to cultivate this kind of exotic beast, and it was very difficult for it to truly die. Therefore, it was very rare. Usually, only the masters above the sect master level would have one. This was both the advantage and disadvantage of the devouring world. The advantage was that they could go wherever they wanted, and the disadvantage was that they couldn't transport troops on a large scale, especially high-grade elite troops. 100 years ago, the devouring world launched an invasion war against the Holy Grail Federation, and the root cause of their failure was this. 30 Void Spirit Rays carried thousands of demon souls, elders, great elders, and sect masters, broke through the natural barrier of the Zeta 2 star field, and launched a surprise attack on the Northern Horizon star system of the Holy Grail Federation. Wherever they went, corpses were everywhere, and poisonous clouds filled the sky. The Holy Grail Federation was caught off guard, resulting in the loss of a large amount of territory. After the Federation recovered from the shock, they quickly gathered reinforcements from everywhere, and at the same time, bought a large amount of war supplies from the Norse Empire, and engaged in an unprecedentedly fierce battle with the devouring world army. To put it bluntly, they were exchanging people for people. The reason why the Federation adopted such a cruel tactic was that they sacrificed the frontline soldiers to buy time for the fleets behind them to gather. Once the front line fell into a stalemate, the devouring world would be powerless because the Void Spirit Rays had to pay a huge price to transport their elite troops back and forth. After a few rounds of battle, the Federation suddenly gathered more than 200 large interstellar fleets, including 30 special fleets and 5 super fleets, and pushed back with an unstoppable force. In this war of the century, 26 Void Spirit Skates in the Devouring Realm were turned into cannon fodder, and the remaining 4 were seriously injured. All the ground troops were wiped out, and none of the warriors under the Great Elder survived. At the same time, 13 patriarchs had also fallen. This was a real blow to the vitality of the Saint Brilliance Federation in the truest sense of the word. This war had also exchanged for 100 years of peace for the Saint Brilliance Federation. When the Frogman Kingdom saw that the devouring world had suffered such heavy losses, they secretly sent 3 expeditionary forces across the fertile chalk system, wanting to take down the poison cloud demon sea in one fell swoop. In the end, the Norse Empire took advantage of this opportunity and sent a large number of troops across the fertile chalk system, beating the Frogman Kingdom so badly that they could not raise their heads. In order to stabilize the situation in the fertile chalk system, the Frogman Kingdom had no choice but to call back the expeditionary forces. After that battle, the 4 families understood one thing. It was best not to send out troops rashly. Everyone was in a state of mutual restraint, and whoever made the first move would be unlucky. Of course, the devouring world and the Frogman Kingdom also saw how terrifying the human world was once united. So from then on, everyone played on their own. At a glance, one could tell that it was a highly toxic item. Lung-In opened her mouth and swallowed one. She chewed it with great relish, oil dripping from her mouth. She had a look of enjoyment on her face. As she ate it, the blue light around her body became even brighter. It was clearly a great tonic. This is an immortal fruit that I obtained from the sacred lake of the devouring realm. It is very nourishing. As long as your injuries are not too serious, you can recover in an instant, Lung-In explained. Ding Ming said, I know this thing. It is called the green glow. Lung-In was a little surprised. How did you know? Ding Ming sighed. I once wandered with an elder of the devouring realm for a while. He told me a lot about the things that you plundered in the devouring realm. Lung-In asked curiously, so you have interacted with people from the devouring realm before? What is the elder's name? Ding Ming said, his name is Shuiyu Mountain. He has been dead for a long time. His spiritual body is attached to an artificial body. Unfortunately, I cannot bring him back from the Divine War Starfield. Lung-In was stunned. Shuiyu Mountain is a member of my Sevenfold Mountain clan. He is my disciple and grand disciple. Ding Ming was also stunned. What a coincidence. Lung-In said, many years ago, in order to find the divine light energy, I sent many disciples and grand disciples out. He was one of them. After hearing her explanation, Ding Ming suddenly understood. Didn't Shuiyu Mountain and Feng Jianjin fight for the divine light energy on the expedition for dozens of years? Ding Ming couldn't help but send a telepathic thought to Lung-In, telling her about Shuiyu Mountain and Feng Jianjin. Lung-In was a little emotional. I didn't expect this grand disciple to be so loyal to me. As a spiritual body, he fought with Feng Jianjin and the water droplet for dozens of years. He is indeed a disciple of my sect. I will go to the Divine War Starfield and bring him back personally. Ding Ming said, didn't you say that your Void Spirit Ray has been dormant on the Poison Dragon Star for many years and is running out of energy and food? The Divine War Starfield is almost 1,000 light years away from here. Can you fly there? Lung-In also looked distressed. Don't mention it. My spiritual beast is very weak now. It can't even fly through a wormhole, let alone going to the Divine War Starfield. It will be difficult for it to even go back to the devouring world. We can only go to the Zerdal Starfield first. Ding Ming was also a little depressed. We can't use short-distance teleportation or wormhole flight. How long will it take to reach the Zerdal Starfield at this speed? Lung-In said, it will take at least 2 to 3 years. If you're bored, you can cultivate in this room. There are many things here. You can use them as you wish. There are also many supplies and daily necessities in the Space Leaf. Ding Ming glanced at the colorful and strange plants around. They were all poisonous things. It was not that he couldn't use them, but his main goal was to refine the divine light essence. If he absorbed the poison, it would be a deviation from his main goal. Too slow, Ding Ming judged. Lung-In said helplessly, I don't have a choice. Spiritual beasts usually eat and drink the holy water from the sacred lake. It takes a long time to digest it and turn it into energy. Only then can it travel through space. Do you think it's easy for me to go to the fertile chalk star system? Just the preparation of the spiritual beast will take a few years. Now we have to take a detour. If we run into the Federation's patrol fleet and have a big fight, we might have to postpone the trip for a few years. Ding Ming was a little impatient. Is there no way to speed up? Lung Yin's eyes flashed. It's not that there is no way. Didn't that senior give you the divine light essence? Once the spiritual beast obtains a part of the divine light essence, it can be converted into an energy pool. Then our speed will be greatly increased. Ding Ming looked at her. After beating around the bush for so long, this is what you want? Lung Yin felt guilty under his gaze. She hurriedly waved her hand and said, "How would I dare be disrespectful to that divine light senior? Besides, with your current strength, how can I be your opponent? Besides, my grand disciple was saved by you. The sooner we reach the Zyrtl star field, the sooner I can go back to the devouring realm, and the sooner you can go back to the Federation. There is no other way." Ding Ming thought for a while. Since things had come to this, there was no other way. "Where's the energy pool you mentioned?" "I'll take you there," Lung Yin replied. Then she looked at Isendale, who was curled up on the ground. "What about this woman?" Ding Ming waved his hand. "Don't worry about her. Let her stay here." Lung Yin saw that Isendale was very weak. She guessed that Isendale had vomited on the way here. Lung Yin took out an orange nut from the tree stump and stuffed it into Isendale's mouth. Isendale seemed to know that Lung Yin did not want her to die. Regardless of whether the nut was poisonous or not, she opened her mouth and swallowed it. She fainted as soon as she swallowed it. Ding Ming frowned. "I remember that she is also immune to poison. How could she be knocked out so quickly? What did you feed her?" Lung Yin's pupils kept flashing, and her expression was a little unnatural. "Nothing. It's just a fruit to replenish her strength. Let her rest for a while to prevent her from causing trouble." Ding Ming stared at her suspiciously. "I have to warn you. Don't play any tricks. Lead the way. Let's go." Although he did not have a good impression of Isendale, he did not have any bad intentions either. Previously, he was mainly angry that Isendale had taken the opportunity to steal his things. She could not win against him, but she was still stubborn. However, Ding Ming had been tortured by her along the way, so his anger had long dissipated. Although Isendale was Ling Xingqi's best friend, she was still a member of the human world. It would be a pity if she was poisoned to death by Lung Yin's fruit. Ding Ming thought that if he really wanted to kill this woman, he would rather melt her. Of course, Ding Ming had his own principles. As long as there was no deep hatred, there was no need to be so extreme. Isendale was a battle saint of the Federation. If he really wanted to do this, he would have to carefully consider the consequences. He had already pissed off the Starbow Corporation. He could not add another strong enemy, the Rainbow family. The more enemies one had, the better. Similarly, the more friends one had, the better. After Lung Yin led Ding Ming around the interior of the Void Spirit Ray, they finally arrived at a very strange space. This space was like a super furnace. It was divided into 3 levels, the top, the middle, and the bottom. Each level was 20 meters tall, and the entire furnace was supported by 16 giant bones. Ding Ming and Lung Yin stood on the edge of the fern moss on the top level. Looking down, there was a colorful stream of light at the bottom level. This stream of light was actually a Tai Chi 8 trigrams diagram. Its aura was exactly the same as Lung Yin's. In fact, Ding Ming was no stranger to the Tai Chi 8 trigrams. This was passed down from the ancient human world. Its meaning was that everything and phenomena in the universe contained yin and yang, as well as the 2 sides of the surface and the interior. This law of matter was used by the devouring world, which proved that Lung Yin was right. The devouring world was probably another form of the human world. According to Lung Yin's explanation, this was the so-called energy pool. It was the heart of the Void Spirit Ray. Like the reactor of the starship, it provided an endless supply of energy for the entire starship. Therefore, to inject energy into the Void Spirit Ray, one had to come to the core. Lung Yin muttered something, and her eyes flashed with blue light. Ding Ming immediately felt that Lung Yin had established a strange connection with the energy pool. It was as if two psychic strings of the same form had merged together. After a long time, Lung Een softly shouted at the energy pool, Senior 7 kills, are you there? Lung Een wants to see you. Chapter 710. As soon as Lung Een spoke, the Tai Chi flowing light immediately gushed out blue thread-like streams of energy. These streams of energy actually turned into a floating, blurry ghost face in the air. This face looked like a human face, but upon closer inspection, it looked like a cat's face. It had one thing in common with Lung Een, and that was that it only had eyes and no pupils. The pupils of the eyes were pitch black. Seeing this ghost face in the depths of the furnace, even Ding Meng, who had always been brave, felt his heart tremble. The ghost face spoke, Sec Master, why did you call my source spirit? Lung Een introduced, this is Ding Meng, Mr. Ting. The ghost face looked at Ding Meng, and his voice was filled with surprise. A divine light martial artist? Ding Meng was also a bit surprised. You know about the divine light energy? The ghost face was silent for a while before saying, I met him 100 years ago and had a deep impression of him. I never thought that we would meet again. Lung Een said with a serious expression. He wants to inject the divine light energy into the energy pool to help you quickly reach Zeta 2-star field. The ghost face respectfully lowered his head. Thank you for your grace. Ding Meng nodded. Injecting the energy pool was not a problem right now. The difficult part was how to use the energy in the warehouse. Ding Meng opened his palm, and the divine light singularity appeared in his palm with a shio sound. It instantly released a strong light that turned into a cross-shaped star that lit up the entire furnace space. However, this was Lung Een and the ghost face's vision. Ding Meng's vision was different. Just like when Xiao AI brought out the true source red crystals, Ding Meng's vision had a simple light screen in front of him. There were all kinds of images on it, which were the energy stored in the warehouse. Once he decided to use them, he could use the singularity and his divine sense to bring them out. Ding Meng took a closer look. First of all, there was the label of the divine light crystals. They looked like sparkling and translucent crystals. The label indicated that there were 10 of them, and each of them contained enough energy to completely restore 20 Maoxing generals. If it was converted into energy index, it meant that each divine light crystal would not be less than 300 billion points. If it was converted into energy, it would be an astronomical figure that was impossible to estimate. It was obvious why Ling Xingqi was willing to pay such a high price to obtain the divine light energy. Just these 10 crystals were enough to make all the old monsters in the Federal Empire go crazy. Next was the ruby symbol of the true source red crystals. There were 5 of them, and Ding Meng knew how powerful they were. Just one of them was enough to turn Little Rascal from Mao Xing's spirit body into a real human life form. It was clear how powerful they were. If you need me to speed up, I can enter the wormhole and arrive within 2 hours. Ding Meng waved his hand and said, You don't have to sacrifice your energy to open the wormhole. 2 months is enough. 7 kills immediately said gratefully, Thank you, young friend Ding Meng. During this time, I will ensure the safety of you and the sect master. Please rest assured. This was a classic lie. After the first time last night, Ding Meng was satisfied, but Eisendale's drug did not wear off. She insisted on sticking to him and begging him to have her. Which man could refuse such a request? Bullsh asterisk T. Eisendale blushed. In fact, she had some recollection of it, but the bliss of being in the company of Ding Meng was too great. She flew up into the sky and then fell down to the ground. After being repeatedly pounded by Ding Meng 7 or 8 times, she finally fell asleep due to fatigue. It must be known that Ding Meng was a strong origin ability user. It would be strange if Isendale did not feel pain from such repeated movements. However, it was still the same principle. Since he had taken advantage of her, he should do one or two small things for her. Therefore, Ding Ming could only help her put on her clothes. Unfortunately, the Alloy Demon King was a country bumpkin who had not seen much of the world when it came to women. He did not even know how to put on the complicated interior. He fiddled with it for a long time, but still could not get the point. "You useless guy, I'll do it myself." Isendale snatched it away. After a series of rustling sounds, Isendale returned to her multi-style image. The only difference was that her cheeks were bright red and she looked very delicate. "Ding Ming, you better remember this. Previously, you hit me, threw me, kicked me, and even dragged me. Now, you're taking advantage of me. I won't take advantage of you for nothing. You have to do something for me," Isendale said unhappily. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "Then what do you want me to do?" Isendale shook her wavy hair. "I haven't thought about it yet. Let me think about it first." Isendale also had her own thoughts. From the perspective of a conflict of interest, Ding Ming was not her true enemy. However, the bad thing was that they were in a relationship. She valued her first time very much, but she never thought that it would happen under such circumstances. However, although Ding Ming was not her type, Ding Ming was definitely a powerful person who could help her and the Rainbow family. Therefore, she had to think of a way to get Ding Ming to help her solve some big problems before she was willing to let it go. However, Ding Ming's face suddenly darkened. "What are you doing sneaking around outside? Did you think I didn't notice you?" The grass curtain outside the door opened automatically, and Lung Yin walked in with a smile. "Did you rest well?" Seeing that it was Lung Yin, Isendale could not help but want to go berserk. "You be asterisk TCH. You poison me." Lung Yin ignored her completely. Instead, she spoke to Ding Ming respectfully. "Ding Ming, I have good news for you. We are about to arrive at 1000 Sails Star in the Zeta 2-star sector." Ding Ming was a little surprised. "So soon?" Lung Yin shook her head. "Not soon. It's been 40 days. How long had it been?" Chapter 712. Ding Ming actually wanted to accept Lung Yin's invitation. Not to mention other things, it was not safe for him to return to the Federation after destroying so many masters of the Starbow conglomerate. At least, he would not be able to go back for a while. This trip to the fertile chalk system made him realize that there were definitely people stronger than Ling Xingqi in the Holy Grail Federation. He would not lose to anyone in a one-on-one fight, but he would not necessarily win against those big conglomerates and families if they wanted to play dirty. Ding Ming pondered and said, "I do want to go to the Poison Cloud Demon Sea, but if I go to 1000 Sail Star, I have some personal matters to attend to." "Is that so?" Lung Yin was a little disappointed. "Then I will ask Senior 7 Kills to send you to the surface. If you have time in the future, you can come visit my 7 Mountain family. You're always welcome." When Isendale heard that Ding Ming wanted to go to 1000 Sail Star, she immediately became happy. As long as he entered the Zeta Star system, he would be a big step closer to returning to the Holy Grail Federation. The Zeta Star system was huge. It was not a pure star system, but was made up of a large amount of interstellar dust and meteorite belts. There were only a few planets in it. It was because of this celestial environment that it became a very important strategic junction between the Holy Grail Federation and the Devouring World. No matter who wanted to start a fight, it would take a lot of effort for an army to cross the Zeta Star system. In the Zeta Star system, 1000 Sail Star was a very important junction planet. This huge terrestrial planet was located in the center of the junction between the north and the south. In fact, 1000 Sail Star was originally inhabited by a large number of natives and outer space refugees. Although it was not prosperous, it reduced the burden of the Holy Grail Federation. However, the War of the Devouring World 100 years ago almost destroyed all life on the planet. As a result, 1000 Sails planet became a barren land. The planet's environment was divided into 2 categories. First, it was filled with sand and dust everywhere. This was an environment that was barely suitable for human habitation. Second, It was a poisonous half-desert, half-quagmire. This was the aftermath of the war that had taken place 100 years ago. The strange poison that had devoured the world was difficult to completely eradicate, so it had spread throughout the land, giving birth to all kinds of poisonous monsters. The Void Spirit ray didn't completely land on the ground. After entering the atmosphere, it dropped Ding Meng and Eisenale down according to the coordinates Ding Meng had specified. This was a desert filled with rocks. Occasionally, water would flow between the rocks. The sky was foggy and filled with sand. In fact, this kind of terrain was easy to imagine. He suddenly looked alert and asked, "Brother Ding Meng, who is this person?" Eisenel did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't you know what I mean? Can't you tell that I'm on the same side as Ding Meng?" Well, Ding Meng was also in a dilemma. If he explained that they were friends, Gu Zi and his sister would definitely not understand. This place was too primitive. Gu Zi and his brother did not know what friends were. In their concept, there was only the difference between family and outsiders. Ding Meng simply explained, "Well, her name is Eisendel. She's my woman. You can call her Sister Eisendel." Eisendel was speechless. "Are you done taking advantage of us?" Gu Zi's eyes lit up. "So she's one of us. Hello, Sister Eisendel." Eiko, on the other hand, was curiously looking at Eisendel's galactic clothes. The envy in her eyes could not be concealed. In fact, Eiko's facial features were very well defined. Perhaps it was because she had been working and hunting all year round that she had a strong physique and overly developed muscles. Eiko's eyes were very clear, and her gaze was very pure. Eisendale could not help but feel compassion for her. When she was Eiko's age, she had a villa to store her various fashions and accessories. She had even hired 2 high-level tailors to manage and maintain the villa. Yeetzi was also a young girl, but she didn't even have a set of clothes to cover her body. Eisendale had never thought that the St. Brilliance Federation, which was already in the interstellar era, would have such a huge gap between people. Eisendale took out a set of dark blue training clothes from her 100 treasures satchel and said, "Eiko, I'll give you this set of clothes. Go and change into it." Eiko did not dare to take it. She just turned her head to look at Ding Meng, meaning to ask Ding Meng. Ding Meng smiled and nodded. "Take it. She means well." Eiko quickly took it and bowed. "Thank you, Sister Eisendel. Thank you. Thank you." It was said that clothes made the man. As soon as Eiko put on the new training clothes, she immediately became spirited. She patted them left and right and could not bear to put them down. Eisendel also smiled. "It looks good. Much more spirited than when I was young." Eiko bowed again. "Thank you, sister." Guzi waved his hand. "We're family. Let's go in and sit." That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.